Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, present. Supervisor Breed.
Here.
Breed, present. Supervisor Campos.
Present.
Campos, present. Supervisor Cohen.
Present.
Cohen, present. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, present. Supervisor Kim. Kim, present. Supervisor Marr. Marr, absent. Supervisor Peskin.
Here.
Peskin, present. Supervisor Tang.
Present.
Tang, present. Supervisor Weiner. Weiner, present. Supervisor Yee.
Present.
Yee, present. Madam President, there is a quorum.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Can you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag,
United States of
States of
America.
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
I have no communications today, Madam President.
Colleagues, are there any changes to the May 24, 2016 board meeting minutes? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Motioned by Supervisor Campos, seconded by Supervisor Marr. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will pass after public comment. Madam Clerk, read the consent agenda, please.
Item numbers 1 through 7 comprise the consent calendar. These items are considered routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Seeing no names on the roster, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the consent calendar, Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner.
Aye.
Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Those items are passed on the first reading and adopted unanimously. All right, Madam Clerk, let's go to our regular agenda.
Item number 8 is an ordinance amending the administrative code to establish a new Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, transfer homeless-related functions to the new department, and establish the local homeless coordinating board to advise on homeless policy and serve as a continuum of care governing body in accordance with federal regulations.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is a resolution designating outreach and neighborhood periodicals for fiscal year 2016-2017 with SF Weekly, Small Business Exchange in San Francisco Bayview for the African American community, Tsingtao Daily and SF Weekly for the Chinese community, El Reportero and SF Weekly for the Latino community, Bay Area Reporter and SF Weekly for the LGBT communities, Central City Extra for the Central Market and Tenderloin neighborhoods, Marina Times for the Marina and Cow Hollow neighborhoods, and the Potrero View for the Potrero Hill, Bayview, Mission Bay, and Soma neighborhoods.
All right, seeing no names on the roster, Madam Supervisor Kim?
Oh, I just wasn't sure if Supervisor Cohen had worked out an amendment for this item, and so I just wanted to ask the supervisor if she'd still like to move forward with an amendment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Supervisor Kim. I appreciate that deference. We have worked.
Supervisor Cohen? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Kim. And the President's afforded me another opportunity to thank you. In all seriousness, though, yes, I've had an opportunity to meet with Naomi Campbell. Not Naomi Campbell. I mean. Oh my God, it's gonna be one of those days. My apologies. Naomi Kelly.
We all don't look alike, Supervisor Cohen.
Touche, fair enough. And correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisor Weiner actually made a motion last week that incorporated the Bayview newspaper, which is what I'd like to see. So we are all squared away and ready to go. Thank you.
Okay. So seeing no names on the roster, Madam Clerk, colleagues, can we take this item? Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call items 10 through 14 together.
Item numbers 10 through 14 are ordinances adopting and implementing amendments to memorandums of understanding and new memorandums of understanding with the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, Local 21, Service Employees International Union, Local 10-1, Unrepresented Employees, Service Employees International Union, Local 10-1 staff, and per diem nurses, and Teamsters Local 856, supervising registered nurses for the fiscal year 2016-2017.
All right, seeing no names on the roster, colleagues, can we take these items, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinances are finally passed unanimously. Item 15.
Item number 15 is an ordinance amending the general plan to make conforming changes in association with legislation creating the Affordable Housing Bonus Program by amending the housing element, urban design element, Van Ness Avenue area plan, Chinatown area plan, downtown area plan, and northeastern waterfront area plan, and making appropriate findings.
Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep my comments on item 15, but knowing that item 17 is also tied to this, I'll reserve my comments on item 17 when we get there. But colleagues, today I will just again urge you to adopt the general plan amendment that is before you today. As I mentioned last week, this is a general plan. It's in its name. And although some have concerns about what this does in terms of height increases throughout the city, I just want to send a reminder that the department, planning department, the planning commission, our planning code, all of those actually further dictate what it is that we can build here in San Francisco. The other thing that I noted last week, but I'll repeat again as well, is that this general plan amendment before us today also helps us conform certain projects that we as a Board of Supervisors have granted height increases to in the name of affordable housing, 5M being one of those projects, as well as Pier 70, which was actually approved by voters to increase the heights there for more affordable housing. So, colleagues, again, I would just encourage you to adopt this general plan amendment today. It is not a rezoning of the city, as our planning director stated last week. And so I hope that you'll be able to support me in that.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I rise to once again express my concern over the general plan amendment that is before us and the subject of this item, which, as I've stated at previous meetings, I believe was constructed in a much too broad fashion. I suggest that we vote down the general plan amendment. I understand that the Planning Commission will be meeting this Thursday to make some general plan findings on item 17, which has not been called yet, but I would like to acknowledge and appreciate the amendments that Supervisor Tang has made to that item. That notwithstanding, I believe that we should have a more narrowly tailored general plan amendment that will not give the department the vast power to, subject to future zoning, rezone vast swaths of the city, and with that would urge a no vote on this item.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you. First, just a point of information. If item 15 is rejected, does item 17 become moot, or would we still discuss and vote on item 17?
Mr. Gibner.
Deputy City Attorney John Gibner. You can still discuss item 17 if item 15 fails, but the board cannot pass item 17 until the Planning Commission either recommends a new amendment to the general plan or makes findings that item 17 is consistent with the existing general plan. So you could continue it or send it back to committee.
Okay. So I will speak to the merits on item 15 since item 17 may effectively become moot today. So I support item 15, this general plan amendment. And first I want to thank Supervisor Tang for her leadership on this issue. It is not often in at least recent San Francisco history that a West Side supervisor has sort of stepped up in such a meaningful way to author legislation that will significantly move the dial in terms of housing production in San Francisco and production particularly of affordable housing at no cost to the taxpayer. So this is a big step forward, and I just want to really thank Supervisor Tang for her leadership. I know she's taken a lot of slings and arrows around this legislation. There's been a fair amount of misinformation around it, and Supervisor Tang has listened and has made good amendments, including prohibiting demolition of existing housing, which was a concern for a lot of us, including Supervisor Tang, and she corrected that, and that's a good thing. We want to make sure we're not demolishing existing housing, I know that there are a lot of different views about this legislation, but at some point where we either acknowledge that we need more housing of all types, including affordable housing, or we don't. We can sit here and have a lot of consternation and concern and protests and be upset about the fact that the average rent in San Francisco is $3,500 a month, or we can actually do something about it. And this program, while certainly not a global solution to our housing crisis, there's no such thing as a global solution, is a significant piece of the puzzle. The Affordable Housing Density Bonus Program will allow us to create significantly more housing in a way that is spread out throughout the city, not just concentrated in a few areas, in a way that will create significant thousands and thousands of units of below market rate housing at no cost to the taxpayer. This is a good step, and we should take it. And with respect to item 17, which will be called but is caught up in item 15, Supervisor Tang chose to limit what she brings to the board right now to 100% affordable housing, to make it easier to build 100% affordable housing, to say that when we have a plot of land where we're building affordable housing, we're going to let you go a little bit higher so that you can take full advantage of that land to build more affordable units. This is an important piece of legislation. We should be passing it. It is unfortunate that there's been so much opposition to it, but again, at some point, we have to decide, are we just going to be upset about the cost of housing, or are we going to do something about it? And if we're going to do something about it, this is an important step for us to take, and we should take it.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiener. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo some of the points by Supervisor Peskin, but I wanted to thank Supervisor Tang for bringing this forward, for supporting the 100% affordable parts of the density bonus legislation, but also the density done right that Supervisor Peskin and I and a coalition of housing organizations have put out there. But I wanted to thank Anne Marie Rogers from planning and the planning staff for calendaring this item. I think it's critical that we're very close, I think, to finding a measure that we can have unanimous support for. I don't want to see a divided vote, so I would urge continuation until the next meeting, which is July 12th, to give 2 weeks to work out some of these issues so that we have unity on these items. But I wanted to thank planning staff and the Mayor's Office of Housing and others to try to intervene so that we are not a divided board, but that we move forward together. I don't think a motion was made, but I would like to see more time so that we could find the unity that I think is here between the two measures on the 100% affordable housing.
Thank you. Supervisor Tang.
Question through the chair to Supervisor Marr. Are you talking about the general plan amendment, or are you talking about item 17?
So on item 15, to continue the general plan amendment until our next meeting on July 12th.
I would for full disclosure, there is a 90-day clock ticking on the general plan amendment, and if we don't take action, it's deemed approved. I'm not sure that our colleague sitting next to me would be okay with that, so even though I would be.
Okay.
Supervisor Tang, are you finished?
Yes.
Supervisor Peskin?
So if I may, through the President to Supervisor Marr, suggest that there are a couple of paths that this could go down. And quite frankly, if the general plan amendment were changed to reflect the subject and the policy in item 17, I'd be fine with that. But as Supervisor Tang just said, it's an up or down vote. We cannot under the charter make those amendments, which I have language, I could amend it today, but we don't have that power. So the Planning Commission can make consistency findings, and that is on their agenda for this Thursday. But in the absence of our voting this particular amendment down, it will become law by operation of law on July 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Seeing no other names on the roster, Madam Clerk, on item number 15, can you please call the roll?
On item number 15, Supervisor Campos.
No.
Campos, no. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. No. Kim, no. Supervisor Marr.
No.
Marr, no. Supervisor Peskin.
No.
Peskin, no. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner.
Aye.
Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
No.
Yee, no. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, no. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 5 ayes and 6 noes, with Supervisors Campos, Kim, Marr, Peskin, Yee, and Avalos in the dissent.
The ordinance fails. Madam Clerk, please call item number 16.
Item number 16 is an ordinance waiving the inclusionary affordable housing requirement, exempting certain floor area from the calculation of gross floor area, and reducing transferable development rights by that amount for a project at 1066 Market Street in exchange for the dedication of real property at no cost, and making various appropriate findings.
Roll call vote.
On item 16, Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner.
Aye.
Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinance finally passes unanimously. Item number 17, please.
Item number 17 is an ordinance amending the Planning Code to create the 100% affordable housing bonus program to provide for development bonuses and zoning modifications for 100% affordable housing projects, establishing the procedures projects shall be reviewed and approved, adding a fee for applications, and amending the Planning Code to exempt projects from certain height limits and making appropriate findings.
Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. Given that we had just failed the general plan amendment, one of the things that I would like to do today for item 17, if Mr. Carroll can pass out the amendment before you. Essentially, as Supervisor Peskin mentioned, we do have an item calendared at our Planning Commission on this Thursday so that the Planning Commission can make consistency findings for our affordable housing bonus program, the 100% program, with our existing general plan. The only portion that is actually not technically in conformance with the existing general plan is the northeastern waterfront area plan south of the center line of Broadway. And so to ensure that this is really a technical change here, to remove that portion from our affordable housing bonus program, 100% program, we have to make that amendment today, which is being passed out. And then secondly, I would just say that, even though there is potentially a path forward, given that the Planning Commission can make a determination on Thursday at this Planning Commission, I do want to emphasize how important it is for us to pass item 17 out before we enter legislative recess. As Mayor's Office of Housing mentioned last week, and I'm going to ask that they come up here again with some of their more updated numbers, there are affordable housing projects in the pipeline, which if we were able to use our local 100% density bonus program, could yield us many more units of affordable housing. And so at this time, and you'll have a chart before you as well to demonstrate what that looks like, I would like to ask if Kate Hartley is here from Mayor's Office of Housing to go over that information with us.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Kate Hartley, Mayor's Office of Housing. You see before you a chart that shows the current zoning and an approximate number of additional units that could be yielded with a density bonus. As we talked about last week, These are numbers that would be finally determined if we had a density bonus tool in the context of the regular community outreach that the Mayor's Office of Housing always requires of its development partners with the community, with stakeholders, to make sure that the buildings that we finance and sponsor are done in a collaborative way that reflects the context and neighborhood character and also meets the needs of low-income people who desperately need affordable housing. So we really strive to hit that sweet spot between building as many units as we possibly can and also building very high-quality buildings with great architectural design. So the units that you see, the buildings that you see before you are immediate projects in the pipeline. With the density bonus, they could yield approximately 200 additional units. These are 200 desperately needed units, and on a project-by-project basis, we again would be working with the community and stakeholders to get the right unit count. The Affordable Housing Bonus Program is an important tool that will help us do our job as well as we can.
Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. And then you'll see from the chart here as well that if our legislation passes before recess, there are actually 3 projects in the pipeline where an entitlement decision was already rendered in will be in fall of 2016 that could add an additional 108 units using a local density bonus program. In the winter, there would be potentially another 60 additional units added through this program, and in the spring, an additional 35. So, colleagues, today I'm going to ask that we adopt this amendment that I have stated before you today. Again, to repeat, it is to remove the northeastern waterfront area plan south of the center line of Broadway, and then, as amended, continue this item 17 until our July 12th Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay, Supervisor Tang has made a motion to amend. Is there a second on her amendment? Seconded by Supervisor Farrell. So on the amendment, Madam Clerk, can we have call the roll?
On the amendment to item number 17, Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner.
Aye.
Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
All right, the amendment passes unanimously. Seeing no other names on the roster, Supervisor Tang has made a motion to continue this item to the meeting of July 12th, 2016. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, this item, as amended, will be continued to the meeting of July 12th, 2016. Next item, please.
Item number 18 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a purchase and sale agreement for 450 6th Street with the Stella Arnold 1987 Exempt Trust for approximately $2.4 million and making appropriate findings.
Seeing no names on the roster, colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item number 19 is an ordinance authorizing settlement of the lawsuit filed by David Zeller for $900,000. The lawsuit involves alleged medical malpractice.
Okay, Supervisor Weiner.
Thank you, President Breed. So I know that the Rules Committee put this forward to the board with a recommendation of do not pass. And I understand why that recommendation happened. I respect it. I respect the city attorney's position on this and my former colleagues in the city attorney's office in terms of why the landscape of the case has changed with the passing of Mr. Zeller, and I'm in no way critical of either my former office or of the Rules Committee. But in reviewing this, I'll be supporting this settlement. I think at some point when we enter into a proposed settlement, it has to mean something, and so I will be voting yes today.
Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam President. I have to say that this is one of those issues that it's not an easy one in terms of where this is. And one of the questions that I have, because I want to make sure that there's also deference given to the city attorney, is if Supervisor Wiener would be open to a continuance of this item. And what I'm thinking in terms of a continuance is clearly circumstances have changed, but I think that there are still equity issues. I mean, there are arguments to be made to make sure the city does the right thing, not only by the plaintiff and the estate of the plaintiff, but I think as a general rule, we want to make sure that we get to a justified, a just outcome. And the fact that someone who the city did wrong to, or someone who is no longer here, who has passed, doesn't mean that we still don't have an obligation to do the right thing. So it is in that spirit to give both sides an opportunity to have further discussions that I'd like to make a motion to continue this item. I don't know what the appropriate amount of time would be.
Supervisor Campos, if you don't mind, before we continue this particular item, I want to be very clear that there are a number of things that we talked about specifically in closed session that unfortunately we will not be able to talk about today in the chamber. I definitely think a continuance is in order, and each of you should make sure that you connect with our Deputy City Attorney to have that discussion in order to understand what transpired within closed session and why the members of the GAO committee made this particular recommendation. So with that, Supervisor Campos, before we allow you to make your motion, I will allow Supervisor Cohen to make comments.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess you somewhat have answered my question. During the time when I sat on GAO, matters of this nature was dealt with in closed session, and it sounds like this matter was dealt with in closed session. And so there's some sensitive data that information that we are not privy to. So my question really is to Supervisor Wiener, who came out with a strong no support of this, or I guess the payout of the settlement. I'm curious to know what you know that I don't know, and why you're, going to go against the recommendation of the committee members.
Supervisor Wiener?
I don't know that I know anything that you don't know. I know that this gentleman, between the time of the settlement and presentation to the board, passed away. And so that, alters from a legal perspective in terms of the facts of the case. But I just, to me, the settlement was agreed to, and it's not binding until this board approves it. But I'm prepared to support the settlement. I don't think I know any facts. I doubt that I know any facts that you don't know.
Okay. Madam President,
Supervisor Cohen.
I'm happy to support the continuance that Supervisor Campos is proposing.
Supervisor Peskin?
Thank you, Madam President. If I may, through the President, to Supervisor Campos, add a friendly amendment, which is that we schedule a closed session of the full board so that we can collectively hear amongst this body what we were able to discuss and hear in closed session at GAO.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. I would definitely support that. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam President. So, colleagues, my motion would be to continue this item to the meeting of July 12th, with an understanding that prior to a vote at that meeting, there will be a closed session held so that we can have a closed session discussion. And without really, so that's a motion. Without delving into the specifics, I think where I would sort of say I am is that I actually agree with Supervisor Wiener as a general rule, that once a settlement is done, that even if there are different circumstances, that you generally want to support the settlement, but out of deference to the city attorney who have very good reasons for the recommendation, I want to make sure that we take time, and my hope is that between now and the time that this comes back to the board, that there can be an agreement between the parties that we can all support. So with that, I make the motion to continue to July 12th.
With a scheduled closed session on the matter at the full board, seconded by Supervisor Weiner. And before we approve that continuance, I just want to express to my colleagues, Supervisor Peskin and Yee and I all sit on GAO with all differences of opinion, and we pass this out as a do not pass unanimously, just to keep that in mind. And there's definitely a reason behind that, which we will, I'm sure, discuss in closed session. So I appreciate your comments. Supervisor Weiner, do you have an additional comment?
No, I'm happy to support the continuance in the closed session, and I hope that in the intervening time period, the parties can perhaps work something out, and I'd be happy to support that if that happens. I think ultimately, and again, having been many times on the other side where I wrote the settlement memo recommending that the Board of Supervisors approve a settlement on a tort-related claim, I know that as a Deputy State Attorney, my role was to give my best advice, but ultimately in approving or not approving a settlement, it is a policy call for the Board of Supervisors, and we can vote for or against any settlement. And so I have obviously the utmost respect for my former colleagues, and like I said, this has nothing to do with me being in any way critical of their position. I completely get it, why they would take this position. It's an extremely reasonable position to take, but I think we play a different role as the client deciding whether to actually pay the settlement.
Thank you, Supervisor Weiner. Supervisor Yee.
I just wanted to state for the record, at the last Rules Committee, I was actually not in attendance because I was in the Budget Committee at the same time. So
At the GAO committee?
GAO, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that clarity, Supervisor Yee. All right, colleagues, on the continuance to the meeting of July 12, 2016, can we take that without objection? Without objection, that continuance passes unanimously. All right, it is now 2:30, folks, and almost every colleague on the board has a commendation. Can you believe that? But since I put mine in first as president, I'm going to go first. It gives me great pleasure to give this commendation to someone who's, I guess I would consider the father of the Western Addition. Mr. Earl Hall, please come forward. See, Earl is one of those unspoken heroes that oftentimes he stays in the background, quietly doing his job, quietly giving some advice to a youngster, quietly trying to resolve a conflict, quietly slipping somebody some money to go buy a sandwich, quietly doing the kinds of things that many of us for so many years have taken for granted. And now that he's retiring, this is our incredible opportunity to show him love and appreciation. Earl is retiring from the African American Art and Culture Complex, where I served for 10 years as the executive director, and currently Mohammed Bilal is the executive director there. He is so special to our community, and it was really important that we acknowledge not only his commitment to the African American Art and Culture Complex, but we acknowledge his commitment to the city and county of San Francisco. So for everybody who visits the African American Art and Culture Complex on a regular basis, whether it's an event, whether it's a program, whether it's a class, we always look forward to seeing Earl. And we know if there's a problem that he is the one that to go to solve it. And Earl, I'm going to tell a little bit about your history, because I think it's important that it's not to talk about how old you are, but more importantly,
that's okay too,
to talk about, just how far you've come. Born in Chicago, Earl moved to San Francisco in 1942 as a young child. He went to Roosevelt Middle School and George Washington High School. And after he graduated from George Washington, he went to City College of San Francisco. Earl entered into the graphic arts world in 1958 when he became a graphic designer for L.C. Cole Advertising Agency. Then from 1968 to 1988, he owned and operated his own graphic design company called Black and White Color Images, or on Merchant and Montgomery Streets in the Financial District. During this time, he also owned a jazz club on Bayshore Boulevard and Leland Avenue called Keyhole Lounge. People still come to the African American Art and Culture Complex to talk about the good old days of the Keyhole Lounge and what great times they had in San Francisco when Earl had those establishments. That to him was the light of his life. And in 1988, he went on to open a gallery called B&W Images on Fillmore Street, and that's when I met Earl and his wife Helen. It not only displayed art, but it also offered framing service for customers. And if he knew you were running short on money, like I was all the time, he would offer you a discount and say, "Don't worry about it." Don't we wish more people would do that? Earl retired from the graphic arts world in 2001, but his talents did not go to waste. That same year, he began working at the African American Art and Culture Complex, where he was invited to teach graphic art and photography classes. And when I became the executive director in 2002, Earl was the person who really helped me turn the center around. Many of you know that the African American Art and Culture Complex was in a state of disrepair. And because of Earl, we did so much to turn that place around. Whether it was the repairs of the bathrooms, the pipes, the light fixtures, the plumbing, all of the things that we all take for granted, Earl was able to fix it all. I mean, he even put conduit in one of our locations, and we didn't steal power from anybody, but we created a new power source somehow in order to get our recording studio up and running and to get the right amount of electricity in there. And the kids so love that recording studio to this very day. It is definitely heavily used. Earl did it all. He was a problem solver. He was a mentor. He was a father. He was so much to so many people. And I oftentimes use Earl as an example of what many of our organizations need. That stable person, that stable figure who looks out for the community, who takes care of things, who takes care of people, and he leads by example. I know that so many of our young people who have gone on to become adults, who still come back to visit you, they say how much they didn't appreciate you when they were younger, but they so appreciate the advice that you give them, the push that you gave them, all of the knowledge and the support and the encouragement, the inspiration that you gave them when they were kids. And Earl, I don't think I would have been able to do half of the stuff that I did with the African American Art and Culture Complex without you right there by my side.
Thank you, London, for all those kind words. But, you know, that was a mission of love, and you're just like my granddaughter. You know that. We have bonded, and we will be together until the end. And I really appreciate all the things that you have done and the kind words you expressed today, but I'm the one, I feel, that I owe the city and county of San Francisco the opportunities that were afforded me growing up here. I went to Emerson School before it was Cobb. I went to a school that probably none of the people in this audience knows. It was John W. Geary. That's the school behind the Bridge Theater. From there, I went to George Washington High School. From George Washington, and we walked to school every day. This is true. Two, I went to George Washington, and I think that was a bit much. So that is, I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought about retiring maybe 5, 6 years. When you got elected, I thought I was out of here. But there's something about this city that keeps, like in The Godfather, keeps dragging you back in. And, and I love the challenge here. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I won't go quietly into the night. I'm going to do something to make you even more proud of me than what I've done so far. So thanks a lot for everybody, the board members, London, and all my friends and everyone else that's in this gathering. Thank you.
So, if you're here for Earl Hall, please stand up. He has changed so many lives. I know, the Shakespeare Company, Rodessa's here from Cultural Odyssey, Al Williams here from the African American Historical and Cultural Society, Arnold Townsend, one of the board members, some of the former employees, Nicola Figgins, and current employees, Erica. And I see the twins in the back, Melanie and Melora, Judith from Handful Players, Judy Nimzoff from the Arts Commission. This is what, Thomas, there you are, over there hiding now. Thomas Simpson from Afro Solo. This community is here because we appreciate this man so much for being consistent, for being good, for being kind, for being an inspiration, and just for being full of love and taking care of all of us on a regular basis. Our community, our center, is better because you were an important part of making that happen. So on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, it is truly my honor to give you one of our highest commendations from the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, thanking you for your service and your commitment to the city. We love you, Earl Hall. Thank you.
I love you guys.
Next up, we have a commendation from Supervisor David Campos.
Thank you, Madam President, and congratulations again. Thank you for everything you do to the gentleman. I'd like to call upon Kathy Wolf. Is Kathy? Oh, yes. Kathy, as we continue with the celebration of Pride, I'm so excited to be honoring Kathy Wolf today. Kathy has made great contributions to the LGBT community, both locally and globally. Kathy has fought for the representation of LGBT people in cinema. She has helped make LGBT films more accessible to audiences, not only across this country, but quite frankly, across the world. Kathy is well known to the community as the founder of numerous commercial and cultural ventures, including Wolf Video, Wolf Releasing, Wolf On Demand, and Lesbian.com. Wolf Video, which was established in 1985 as a vehicle for social change, has enjoyed a remarkable presence in the marketplace as the oldest and largest exclusive distributor of LGBT-themed films. Wolf On Demand has made it possible for audiences throughout the world to enjoy LGBTQ cinema. These media platforms have not only given a voice to the LGBT community, they have also empowered individuals across the world. You can imagine how many young people, because of their access to these films, have been inspired in different parts of the world to fight for the rights of their community. Kathy has shaped LGBT film and media in profound ways and is deserving of her numerous awards. Among them are the Frameline Award, the National Organization for Women Excellence in Media Award, and Forbes magazine's recognition as an up-and-comer. Her work reflects the values of the LGBT community and epitomizes this year's San Francisco Pride theme of equality without exception. Again, Kathy, thank you for your leadership, for your advocacy, for your hard work. Your commitment to the community has made you an admirable and inspiring agent for justice and social change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm deeply honored and almost speechless to be here and to receive this kind of acknowledgement. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
It's well deserved. Thank you.
Next up will be Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I've come before you to ask that you help me honor a wonderful man, Dr. Toye Moses. Is he here today? Come on down, Dr. Moses. I have a lot of remarks here prepared to describe the accomplishment of Dr. Moses, and I'm going to start at the beginning. Dr. Toye Moses immigrated from Nigeria to the United States in 1965. He attended the University of Colorado, my alma mater, Fisk University, San Jose State University, University of San Francisco, and the California College of Podiatry Medicine. He holds a PhD as well as a master's degree in public health. Dr. Moses is the founding executive director of the Southeast Community Facility of the City and County of San Francisco and is retiring after 24 years. A San Francisco resident since 1974, he received countless awards, recognitions, commendations, certificates, plaques, proclamations, and trophies for his leadership of exemplary service in the area of public service. Before coming to the Southeast facility, he served 4 years as executive director of Young Community Developers, which is a nonprofit in the Bayview community. He previously directed Liberation House, which is an outpatient recovery home for recovering victims of substance abuse in the Western Addition, and he did that for 8 years. He's been a mental health care provider with the Forensics Jail Psychiatric Services in the San Francisco County Jails. Dr. Moses is probably best known for his outstanding contributions in leadership and participation in a variety of civic, political, and religious organizations throughout San Francisco and the entire Bay Area. He's the president and co-founder of the Willie B. Kennedy Democratic Club. He serves as the treasurer on the board of Young Community Developers and the vice president of the board of Community Design Center. And the list goes on. He's president and founder of the African American Democratic Club. He has served on the San Francisco Economic Opportunity Council. He is a commissioner of the San Francisco Immigration Rights Commission in San Francisco, the NAACP Executive Board Committee, the San Francisco Planning and Urban Research Advisory Board, also known as SPUR. He has also served on the Black Leadership Forum and Gateway High School's Board of Trustee, and the list goes on. He served as the San Francisco Mental Health Care Board, UCSF Mission Bay Community Advisory Group, San Francisco Delinquency Prevention Commission, and the Black Coalition on AIDS. Wow, what a career. And to be quite honest, this is just what's been afforded to me on the resume. There's so much to say about Dr. Moses' long career that I really can't fit it all in this board meeting. So I hope that you will join me tonight, as well as a host of many of Dr. Moses' friends, that stand up to applaud him and to recognize his auspicious career with a hearty goodbye celebration this evening. And I can't think of a better location other than 1800 Oakdale. This man has been tremendous to my personal growth. He's been a community man. He's like an uncle to me. And I am saddened that he's leaving in official capacities, but I'm very grateful that he will continue to serve. This man has been an incredible father, and I hear a wonderful husband. That's what Alma tells me. Okay, she's seconding that. He's raised 4 children, all who have grown up to be incredible professionals, and it is with the warmest, most filled heart that I want to present this proclamation to Dr. Moses for his tremendous leadership, mentorship, and just he's an all-around great man. We're grateful to have you and to have you had your service for the city and county of San Francisco. And so on behalf of this chamber and this body and the county of San Francisco, I want to say thank you, we love you, and we are grateful for the time that you have dedicated as a servant to us. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to have my 4 kids and my wife to please come and join me, please. Okay, I'm going to read my prepared statement, brief one.
Wait a minute, that's 3 kids. Where's the other? Oh, okay, all right.
Good afternoon, Honorable San Francisco Board of Supervisors. I sincerely thank you for honoring me today. Thank you for all you do. I admire your tenacity, vision, appreciate your support for the economic development in the Bayview Hunters Point. You have all been stellar community leaders. I feel so blessed to have represented the Southern Facility Commission in interfacing with the most diverse communities in San Francisco, and I'm indeed so proud to call Bayview District my community. The Southern Facility Commission, established in 1987 by the Ordinance of San Francisco Board of Supervisors, is charged with advances opportunities and providing special services to improve the general economic, health, safety, and welfare of residents of the Southeast sector. I feel that most of these goals have been accomplished during my tenure. After 24 years serving as the founding executive director of Southeast Facility Commission and having served under 4 mayors, I have decided to retire effective June 30th, 2016. The privilege of serving the city and county of San Francisco in collaboration with you, the mayor, has been all mine. Your respect, support, and encouragement have always been appreciated and will always be remembered. With my departure from Southeast Facility Commission, I am leaving a solid, talented staff that will continue to be dedicated to the community. They are Carla Vaughn, Commission Secretary, Eleanor Fernandez, Event Committee Coordinator, who along with our newly hired Executive Director, Dion J. Bruchter, we continue to work closely with SFPUC as a team for the benefit of Bayview Hunters Point residents. Last but not the least, I want to thank my wife for 36 years, Alma Robinson, Executive Director of California Lawyers for the Arts, and the 4 young adults. Isabel, the oldest one, she's a graduate of Georgetown University, and she has an MBA degree. And also we have Toyi, who is an actress in Los Angeles. She just won the AWCP Most Award, Theater Award, and lead actress. And she's a graduate of Occidental College. Akintoye is the number 3. And he went to NYU, got his master's degree from Long Island, and also just came back from Brazil, where he had been for 2 years teaching. And the last one is Willie Ford Moses. He couldn't be here today because he's on call. He's a physician at UCSF, so he expressed his not to be able to come here today. It has been a real pleasure to serve the city and the Bayview community with joy, and I look forward to our association in the near future. Please feel free to call me. If I can be of any assistance to you. Best of luck in all your future endeavors. And for me now, it's all about goodbye tension and hello pension. Thank you very much, Supervisor. Supervisor Cohen, you've been wonderful. We're really, really proud of you. You and President London Breed, you are our rising star. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Center.
That was a great speech.
Why don't you come over? Stand right here, Mawu. Okay, here we go. Got it? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Dr. Moses. You are a true asset to the community, and we will miss you dearly. Thank you for your service. And with that, I will recognize Supervisor Mark Farrell.
Thank you, President Breed. Colleagues, today I am honoring not just one individual, but really an organization, and I know a few members are here today, and that's the Alzheimer's Association. And I know David Dolnick is here. I saw Courtney McRae. If there's anyone else up here with the Alzheimer's Association, please come on up. Please come forward here. And thank you for being here today. So, colleagues, we're not only recognizing today the Alzheimer's Association for all their work to end the disease that affects over 5 million Americans. We're also voting on a resolution today to recognize June 2016 as National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. So just a bit of background. The number of people living with Alzheimer's is expected to grow to 16 million by mid-century if we don't develop a cure. Think about that, 16 million people. There are currently more than 575,000 people living with Alzheimer's in California alone, over 12,000 people in San Francisco alone. The Alzheimer's Association opened an office in San Francisco to better provide care here in our own city, and held the largest and most successful walk to end Alzheimer's ever, with over 3,500 participants and raising over $1 million for Alzheimer's research, care, and support. We are making great progress on this disease, but we do need to accelerate the pace of this if we're going to look towards a cure or reducing the effects over the next 15 years. And the Alzheimer's Association is joining together to mark this as Alzheimer's Awareness Month and Brain Cancer Awareness Month. So I want to thank them for their work. There are a lot of personal stories here, I know, certainly with friends of mine as well. But thank you for all your work you do in the city of San Francisco and for being here. And we'd like to commend you and welcome you to say a few words. So congratulations.
Thank you. Hello, my name is David Dolnick, and I am the volunteer chair of the Mission Committee of the San Francisco Walk to End Alzheimer's Planning Committee. My father has Alzheimer's. A university physics professor can no longer tie his shoes. On behalf of the Alzheimer's Association, I want to thank the board for this proclamation and share some basic facts about Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is a fatal neurological disease that kills nerve cells and tissue in the brain, affecting an individual's ability to remember, think, and plan. As the disease advances, people lose their ability to communicate, recognize family and friends, and care for themselves. Currently, there is no known way to prevent, cure, or even slow Alzheimer's, and everyone with a brain is at risk. The Alzheimer's Association provides a wide variety of free or low-cost education, care, and support services to families facing Alzheimer's through our new San Francisco office at 100 Pine Street. San Franciscans affected by Alzheimer's or related dementia or who have questions or concerns can call our 24-hour helpline anytime, day or night, or talk with a caring professional and get answers, support, and referrals. During Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, we're asking you to share the facts with your constituents to help raise awareness and end the stigma that prevents many people from seeking help. I have some brochures and posters with me here, and would be grateful if you would share them with your constituents. We also have electronic resources and a sample newsletter article that we would be happy to share with you. And I would be remiss to not talk about this morning when I woke up and saw that the great legendary coach Pat Summitt has passed away from Alzheimer's at the age of 64. She was diagnosed at 59. Thank you for your support.
Thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you very much, and congratulations. All right, Supervisor Kim, you have a commendation?
I do. Thank you, President Breed. I am presenting a certificate of honor today in memory of Corporal Magdalena Leones, one of our World War II veterans of the Philippines and U.S. Army, and the first and only Filipina to receive the Silver Star Award, the third highest honor for valor awarded to members of the U.S. Armed Forces. She passed away on June 16, 2016, at the ripe old age of 95 years. We have today the General Consul of the Philippines, Henry Bensorto Jr., who will come up to accept the commendation on her behalf and her family's behalf. As I mentioned earlier, the U.S. Silver Star Medal is the third highest honor for valor awarded to members of the U.S. Armed Forces. She is the fifth woman to receive this award and the only Asian woman to receive this award. The four other women that received this distinct honor in World War II served as nurses in the country of Italy during World War II. The next known woman that was awarded the Silver Star by the U.S. Army wasn't until 2005 and then again in 2008. We need to do a little bit of work there. But Leones is someone that we continue to remember in her life and her valor. Her citation stated that she was an intelligence operative in the Philippines who on February 25th to 26th in 1944, quote, repeatedly risked her life to carry important intelligence data, vital radio parts, and medical supplies through a heavily garrisoned, enemy-held territory. Before she turned 25, Magdalena had already been arrested by Japanese soldiers 3 times and escaped all 3 times harm-free. She was eventually enlisted in the Philippines Army and became an official member of the USA FIP. On July 18, 1945, Colonel Vlockman, the man who offered her a position as a special agent, recommended that Magdalena be awarded the U.S. Silver Star. Later in her life, she was also awarded the Philippine Liberation Medal, the Resistance Movement Medal, the World War II Medal, and the Philippine Independence Ribbon. Miss Leones eventually moved to the U.S. right here in California in 1969. She later, in her second stage of life, worked for Pac Bell as a clerk, owned a home in the Richmond and San Jose, and did not talk much about her war exploits, according to her children. She is survived today by her sons Guillermo Tabor, Gildern Tabor, and Gregoria Tabor, daughter Alejandra Metas of West Virginia, her husband Pedro Tabor, and adopted son Leonard Yates. She is also survived by 13 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Corporal Leones was one of the 250,000 Filipino soldiers who fought valiantly in World War II on behalf of the United States. It is truly my honor today to recognize Miss Leones, also Corporal Leones, and it is also equally important that we continue to remember her story, her courage, and her valor. It is also important that we educate our students and young people about the work of many Filipino veterans, but also of this heroine who defied all gender expectations in the 1940s to fight valiantly on behalf of our 2 countries. And it was with tremendous gratitude that I was able to attend her memorial on Saturday and hear personally her stories from her sons, her daughter, and her grandchildren. She was truly a remarkable woman, and the stories that I heard are unimaginable, both in her courage and her intelligence and her bravery. I also want to recognize former Assembly member Fiona Ma, who introduced Assembly Bill 199 in 2011, calling for the inclusion of World War II in the Philippines in our history curriculum for grades 10 and 11 in California. We must continue to remember our Filipino World War II veterans, and they will soon be recognized, I hear, in the Smithsonian, which is a huge feat as well. Colleagues, I also want to thank all of you for passing the resolution during Filipino History Month, calling for the passage of Senate Bill 1555 and House Resolution 2337, directing the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives to make the appropriate arrangement for the award of a single congressional gold medal to the Filipino veterans of World War II in recognition of their dedicated service in this war. So again, I want to recognize the many committee members that are keeping her story alive. Rudy Asurcion, who's here today. Organizations like Veterans Equity Center and Luisa Antonio, and also want to recognize Deputy Counsel General Jaime Escalon and Reggie Bernabe, and also should mention that there is an author who will be writing a book about Corporal Leones, Bea Pantoga, who is here from London to interview family members and others that know her to ensure that her life and her story is recorded in time. Corporal Leones really led a remarkable life, and we are so lucky that she lived a century with us here in this community, and she is an inspiration for so many, but particularly for me as a female. To have her leadership in advance is so important to opening the doors for so many women. So to our Consul General, thank you for being here to accept the commendation on her and her family's behalf.
Thank you, Supervisor Jane Kim. On behalf of the family of Magdalena and the Philippine Consulate General, the entire Filipino American community here in San Francisco and the entire Bay Area, and on behalf of the Filipino American veterans, both expired and those who are still living, from the bottom of our hearts, we would like to express our profound gratitude and appreciation to you, Supervisor Jane Kim, and the entire Board of Supervisors of the City of San Francisco. What was so difficult to get, that recognition from Washington, D.C., it was good to have that here in the city of San Francisco. And we owe this a lot to you, Jane, and the entire Board of Supervisors. And again, on behalf of her family, we would like to accept this with profound gratitude. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your family service and congratulations again. Thank you. And our final commendation will come from our supervisor from District 1, Supervisor Eric Marr.
Thank you, President Breed. Colleagues, I'd like to ask if Laurel Klumak from the First Five Commission, the director, can come forward. If there are any other staff or family members too, please join her if you can. It's my honor to acknowledge before our Board of Supervisors a champion for young children and a tremendous leader on public policy involving early education, special education, families integrated with birth to 5 children, and a champion of preschool for all in our city. Laurel Klumak is retiring from the First Five Commission, and I know there's tremendous love from the staff and all the different teachers and educators and parents that you've touched through the years. Laurel has lived and worked in San Francisco for over 35 years. I think you came here in the early 80s when your daughter was like 6 months old in Parents' Place, and leadership so much all over the city. Your lifelong focus has been really on improving outcomes for our youngest children and their families through social justice and equity as you've built the First Five Commission. I know Supervisor Yee was on one of the First Five Commissions. I served for about 5 years, and Supervisor Cohen as well. But many of us know that Laurel's been the executive director of First Five for 10 years. She's improved likelihood of all children in San Francisco to be healthy, school ready, and to have access to all the resources that we provide in the city. During her tenure at the First Five, Ms. Klumak, with great staff, I might add, has really overseen this investment of $270 million in comprehensive programs for early childhood development. I'll just say the model of an evaluation system for different education centers to the preschool for all model that other cities have looked at is tremendous because of your leadership. Laurel was also the regional director of the Children's Services, Jewish Family and Children's Services for over 10 years, responsible for development and operation of the agency's 4 family resource centers and early childhood mental health programs. I forgot to mention the connection with mental health and young children and families as well, and the skill development of many parents, too, from your leadership. She also directed at Jewish Family and Children's Services the High-Risk Infant Interagency Council implementing federal and state early childhood special ed legislation in San Francisco for children birth to 5 and their families. Earlier, she was a teacher and a leader in special ed, the special ed coordinator for Family Service Agency in San Francisco, where she coordinated early intervention programs of kids with special needs and their families, really championing a full inclusion model in child care settings as well. I just wanted to add that your staff are quoted talking about you, and I've just loved working with you, Laurel. I'll miss you, but I know you'll still be a leader in many ways. But your staff say what makes Laurel so very special is she genuinely cares. She has so much humility and always provides a calm that could only come with true integrity. Let's honor Laurel Klumak, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And before we give you a chance to speak, Supervisor Yee would like to make a few comments.
Laurel.
Yeah.
It really does seem like yesterday when we first started in this field. Maybe I did it a little bit earlier than you in terms of early education, but I think it was in the 80s.
It was, yeah.
When we met, when you were in charge of HRIC, and the organization I was working for also was involved with special needs kids. And so it was a real great partnership at the time. And I thought, okay, now that you're leaving that organization, we would never cross paths again. And every 10 years, we keep on crossing paths. And it's been a great work relationship experience for me to be able to work with you on all these issues that impact a very young so tremendously. And what you've done with the Preschool for All program is made it into a national model. And as you know, as maybe the audience should know, the Secretary of Education came to San Francisco several times from Washington, D.C. to say, how do you do it in San Francisco? Because we want to do that in the United States. They haven't done it yet, but at least they're looking at the right models. So, Laurel, you know, the joke here, I guess it's not a joke today, is that it seems like for the last 10 years you've been saying you're going to retire. Yeah. And now it's hard for me to believe that you're actually going to retire. So we're going to really miss you. I'm sure that in the next few years we're going to probably cross paths again in some endeavor that's going to improve the lives of young children. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much, Laurel. I just want to say thank you. It's been a tremendous pleasure to work with you, even for a brief stint in the couple years that I served with your board. I think you've been a tremendous champion. You've done a great job of educating me on the importance of good, quality, solid, culturally competent early childhood education. And on behalf of the many thousands of children who have benefited from your love and your great works, I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel.
Yeah.
First Five is a great program, and it's a great program because it has incredible leadership. We are so grateful for your service and your commitment to making sure that all of our children here in the city and county of San Francisco have an equal opportunity to really good child care. The workshops your organization does, the work with the community, providing outreach and access, I mean, it is really incredible. It's a great inspiration, and you are definitely going to be missed in the city and county of San Francisco. Oops, we got more members of the board. I thought we were done. Supervisor Avalos.
Yeah.
Just want to say thank you for your great service and your team at First Five. You guys have really raised early childhood education to the highest quality, probably in the whole country. And that's really been part of your dedicated service and your staff as well. And we just wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that the stars were aligned for me when I came to First Five. It's been a roller coaster ride, as many of you know. I remember the first Board of Supervisors meetings I had like 2 minutes to speak, and someone said, "Thanks for doing God's work. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye." And the next person came, the department head, and spoke for 35 minutes, knowing that they were going to be on the television. So I thought, well, the next time I'm going to come and talk a little bit more at the Board of Supervisors meetings. I do feel like I've been blessed with having an amazing group of people that work with me, not only my staff, but in the school district and in philanthropy and in the other departments. We should all be celebrating that we have a really high-quality universal preschool system in San Francisco. We have family resource centers in almost every neighborhood. We have mental health consultation. I think that it's been a real honor to see that in the city's plan, universal preschool high quality is one of the indicators, as is kindergarten readiness. So I feel like, maybe like Mr. Earl, I'm retiring, but hopefully you'll see sightings of me again. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Oh, wait, I do want to say that I am really excited and happy and honored to pass my baton to Ingrid Mesquita, who's going to be the new First Five Executive Director. So, please.
Thank you again for your service and congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our final commendation for today. So we will be resuming our regularly scheduled board agenda, and we actually have a 3 p.m. special order, 1066 Market. Madam Clerk, can you please read those items?
Item numbers 25 through 28 comprise the special order at 3 o'clock p.m. that was continued from May 17, 2016, to hear from persons interested in the Planning Commission certification of a conditional use authorization dated March 17, 2016 for a proposed project at 1066 Market Street. And item numbers 26 through 28 comprise the motions to either approve or disapprove the Planning Commission's decision to approve the conditional use authorization and to direct preparation of appropriate findings.
Okay, it looks like we have a, the sponsor has withdrawn the CEU, and we will need to take public comment since this hearing was scheduled. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this particular item? Seeing none. Mr. Washington, you want to comment on 1066 Market Street?
I'd love to comment on anything that there's public comment in this city.
All right.
Bay, what you call the San Francisco. But I'll wait till something I'm really familiar with. Thank you much.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Washington. All right. Seeing no other members of the public who'd like to comment on this specific item, public comment is now closed, and this hearing has been held and is filed. Is there a motion? Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, colleagues. As you know, we did vote on an amended version of this conditional use authorization last week, so I do want to thank you all for your support, and I will make a motion to move items 26 through 28, a motion to table items 26 through 28.
Okay, Supervisor Kim has made a motion to table those items, seconded by Supervisor Peskin. Colleagues, can we take the motion to table without objection? Without objection, the motion to table those items passes unanimously. All right, we have another 3 p.m. special order. Madam Clerk, can you please read those items?
Item numbers 29 and 30 comprise a special order at 3 o'clock p.m. that the Board of Supervisors will convene as a committee of the whole pursuant to motion number 16-64 that was approved on May 17, 2016, to consider objections to a report of assessment costs submitted by the Director of Public Works, the subject of item number 30, which is a resolution to approve the report of assessment costs for sidewalk and curb repairs through the Sidewalk Inspection and Repair Program.
Okay, colleagues, today's Committee of the Whole is being conducted to consider objections to a report of assessment costs submitted by the Director of the Department of Public Works for work done or caused to be done through the Sidewalk Inspection and Repair Program, and to consider approving the underlying resolution. So let's open this hearing. We will first hear from the department, and then we will open it up to members of the public to comment. And I would like to let members of the public know that if you have any questions or concerns, you will have an opportunity once we finish with public comment to take your issues or concerns outside of the chamber, and there will be a member of the Department of Public Works who can assist you in resolving your issue. Once they have done that, they will come back into the chamber with recommendations to adjust possibly adjust the report. So I just wanted to let every member here know that that's our process. And with that, I will ask Department of Public Works to make any comments regarding this particular report.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Kristen Lowe, representing Public Works Sidewalk Inspection and Repair Program. This program inspects and repairs sidewalks in poor condition, making it easier for property owners to comply with city and state codes to keep sidewalks fronting their properties free of defects by coordinating large-scale sidewalk improvements, securing the necessary permits, and having the repairs performed in a timely manner. Under State Highway 5611 and Local Public Works Code Section 706, the fronting property owner is responsible for the repair and maintenance of the sidewalk fronting their property. Under this program, we inspect and notify the property owner when defects are found. Upon notification by the city to repair the sidewalk, the property owner agreed to have the city perform the work or did not make the needed repairs by the time specified. As a result, the city has repaired the sidewalks and invoiced the property owner for the amount. Alternatively, property owners may elect to have the city's contractor perform the necessary work and have the repair costs placed on their property tax. Under Chapter 80 of the San Francisco Administrative Code, if the property owner fails to repair the sidewalk after having been notified, the city is entitled to perform the repair and invoice the property owner for the repair costs. If the property owner fails to pay the bill, Public Works submits an assessment for the overdue amount to the Board of Supervisors for consideration to include in the next regular tax bill. In the last year, we mailed 3,176 invoices. Of those invoices, 2,779 were paid, which is equivalent to 88% paid. As of today, June 28, 2016, 101 invoices totaling $92,181.26 were removed from the original list through payments made in the recent weeks. In this report, we are submitting 201 invoices totaling $248,278.46, including the 12% administrative fee. It is here that the department requests the board's approval of the list for assessment of sidewalk inspection and repair program properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And colleagues, are there any questions for the department? And seeing no questions, again, I'd like to let the public know. I'm sorry, can you please come back to the front? I missed your name.
Kristen Lowe.
Ms. Lowe, and who's with you here from the Department of Public Works today to assist members of the public?
Judy Leong, and then we also have some inspectors here.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to open it up to public comment, and just wanted each of you to know that there will be someone able to address your issue outside of the chamber in order to try and resolve what your matter is. Thank you very much, Ms. Lowe. First speaker.
Thank you. I thought it would be important to let you know how your program has been working. I just got a bill after 3.5 years of having sent emails and made phone calls to the various Department of Public Works people because there was a problem with the bill. They had all the measurements wrong because many pavers had been removed because I was working tirelessly with the Friends of the Urban Forest, and they did some of the concrete work for me. The process was so obstructive that, just as a little background, I had worked for 3 months with neighbors and signed up over 22 people in my neighborhood for greening. And the process was so obstructive and impossible to get through that every single person backed out. This was after about 12 meetings in my neighborhood, Potrero Hill. That aside, when my particular job, we were all left to scramble and deal with 3 different agencies on our own, each individual person having to work with all these different agencies to get various things done. And when they so-called finished my job, it was so horrendously done that I sent pictures, I sent more pictures, I sent emails, I sent revised numbers, corrections, over and over and over again, and ever widening my reach to the Department of Public Works, the Bureau of Urban Forestry, and various other people with the SIRP, sidewalk inspection, etc. May I please show some photographs of the kind of work that was done?
You can in the overhead projector.
Thank you.
And your time is running,
I
too.
understand.
Okay.
But my final job looked like. It was wobbly, substandard, breaking apart before it was even done. And just for a little background, this was my immediate neighbor's job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bill corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Brad Burke, and I'm a resident at 609 Connecticut Street. And I would like to second what she just said. Our sidewalk was done horribly, had multiple cracks in it after it was done. I raised the concerns to the Department of Public Works, got no response or minimal response. And we object to paying this on our tax bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, supervisors. I'll take care of the details out in the hall, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm here for the second time. 2 years ago, I was here almost the same date for the exact same disputes that we had on the work that was done on our sidewalk. So there were 2 items that were not actually done, and we were charged for them, so we asked that they be taken off the bill. And we were here for a meeting and did all the stuff out in the hall, and nothing ever happened, so I'm back today, so I'm just kind of confused as to why. And that's really the only thing I want you to know, is that I'm just doing it again. So the work was fine, but they just charged me for 2 things that weren't done. They just weren't even there. So
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Murad, last name is Muradian, and I live at 329 Quintara Street. The time when they sent in the paperwork for the repair, just a week or 2 later, I got injured, and I spent 4 days in the hospital and 1 month in rehab. When I came back, the work was really bad work done, and then it was smelling, and it was overflowing. So I called the water department emergency. They came in. They had to break the cement, the lid, just to get to it, to flush it. But they told me it's still going to overflow, and still doing it today. So 2 years ago when I came back here and I told the supervisor the problem, but they never fixed it. So now I'm willing to pay for the repair, but somebody has to fix the damage that they done. I cannot live with this smell. So that's all I'm asking.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. And to the audience, please refrain from clapping. It is not allowed in the board chamber. You're welcome to wave your spirit fingers, is I guess what we called it, but please refrain from clapping. Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Ahmed Posada. I live at 1108 Brazil Avenue, and the work was performed. I live in a corner, so it was extensive work they did. When the day they came, I have already hired a contract that was charging me less than half what the city is charging me. I know what the city is charging me, what the company that you contracted is charging maybe, but it's outrageous how much they are charging. That's one thing. The second thing is that the work they performed, it was a pure quality. Right now, one of the work they did is already broken. And it had nothing to do with the use because it's in the cure. Second complaint I did 2 years ago was that they left a lot of debris on the green area in the property, and they never remove it, even though I called several times and I talked to a supervisor of the company, and they never remove it. Another thing I complained at that time was that while they were doing the work, they damaged some of the blocks that they were okay. They were not damaged at that time. So I don't have any problem paying what is fair. I think it will be outrageous for me to pay all that amount what you are charging me. So if I can get somehow want somebody to come and see what it is, and a second is to pay what is fair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Karma Keats, and I'm from Dog Patch in San Francisco. I have been paying under protest, and I'm still paying, but we did not damage the sidewalk. It was replaced after the city installed a new water main to do what most neighbors consider overdevelop our Dog Patch neighborhood. Therefore, I feel the developers should have paid, since the increased water main was to benefit them and had nothing to do with our living there. This means a lot to me because my father was a mayor of a city and he provided clean running water, which was a huge engineering project to this city when they had none. So it's very close to my heart. And I'm here actually, since I told you already I'm paying under protest, but I'm here actually to honor my father since today is my birthday. And I feel that the thousands and thousands of people who showed up at his funeral to express their gratitude for his kindness to them as his constituents would also be cheering him in heaven. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name's Tom Medden. I live at 2179 12th Avenue. We purchased our house in 1999. The city planted a Chinese elm tree in the city sidewalk in front of it under the previous owner and indicated that they were maintaining it. After 8 years after we bought our house, the tree roots broke through the sewer pipe to our house. It cost us $5,000 to make repairs. In 2013, Public Works informed us that the tree roots had damaged the sidewalk. We were shocked when they told us that we were responsible for the repairs from the tree roots that the city had planted and agreed to maintain. We even learned from Public Works that the Chinese elm tree that the city planted has such an invasive root system that they no longer allow this tree to be planted. When I attended the hearing in 2013 and stated my case, the hearing officer told me the clock stopped and I did not need to do anything until I received a written ruling. Afterwards, I received emails from Public Works stating that they knew I was wrong. I kept on saying I wanted a written ruling as I was promised. All the time, I kept asking. I could never get one. In 2014, I came to a hearing at the Board of Supervisors similar to this one. At the hearing, I had the same request, a written ruling from the original hearing. I never got a response to my request. Now I'm at another hearing with the same request. You know, I highly suspect it's questionable the city can issue a levy when they won't even issue a written ruling to the original ruling. And as well, the damage to the sidewalk occurred from a tree that they will no longer even allow to be planted anywhere in the tree because of such an invasive root system. I'd really request you look at this levy because I think it's unreasonable.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Natalia Goldberg. I own a property on 155 Gold Mine Drive. This is the second time I'm here. I'm wasting my time. I'm a single parent. Absolutely ridiculous. There were no damage to my sidewalk. It was just a matter of adding the damage just because the city wants to make money. I pay $1,500 in property tax, and I refuse to pay these charges. The city came, fixed something that did not even require fixing, and I have to deal with this today again. I'm not paying this money. If I have to escalate, if I have to take this to Washington, I will. But you will not be charging me for something you don't even have the right to come to my property and charge me for, and bring your folks to fix what? Nothing to fix. And I brought this up to the folks here, no response, and I'm not willing to come here next year to argue this. You're wasting my time, wasting my PTO. It's absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Matthew Wellick. I live at Baker in California. I got a notice to repair the sewer vent cover, and I did repair it, and I sent in the form to Patrick Louie, who is the inspector, and I actually spoke to him on the phone. I sent in the form, and then in March I got another notice saying it wasn't repaired. And I spoke to Sarah Dia Chowdhury, and I sent her an email, and she also CC'd William Wood, who works at the Department of Public Works, and I sent a video of the drain cover that I repaired and showing it that it's at my address. And then I got another notice saying that you still haven't repaired it. So I'm wondering, what can I do to prove that I've repaired the sewer vent cover, and that if there's any future repairs that need to be done even to the sidewalk, that if I have to do them, how do I prove that I've done the repairs? Is there somebody I could speak to?
Oh, yes, and I'm sorry you might not have been in the room before I opened up public comment. I expressed that there will be someone outside once we finish taking public comment to meet with you and talk to you about how they can resolve that your particular individual issues.
Okay, thank you. Do they have a name tag or something?
Where did Miss Lowe? She's in the back.
Oh, okay.
And she's outside already? Okay.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, please.
Excuse me, I just live at 25 Sanchez, and my place needs the repairs, and that's fine. But all I'm asking for is a simple thing: some earmuffs, because both sounds from the whole building, plus the sidewalk is kind of bad. So all I'm asking for is a simple request: just put in your budget for some earmuffs for the tenants that live there. That's all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
My name is Herbert Weiner. I'm not a property owner, but I want some clarification. Suppose, for instance, this is a hypothetical case. Suppose, for instance, you own property and say there's a contractor doing work on your block. They set up facilities in front of your house, a crack develops in the sidewalk, and the owner, I assume, would be responsible for repair of that property. Now, in my opinion, the property owner is being punished for damage by a third party. And what resource would that property owner have? Secondly, what resources do property owners have with grievances vis-a-vis public works? I believe public works doesn't mean working people over, and that includes property owners. So I would like clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Luz Molina de Leston. My mother is the owner of the block 56567 Nebraska Street. I am the primary caregiver for my mother. She had a stroke 11 years ago, and she's in a fixed income and under IHSS program. And her income is just to pay her care. And I don't know how she's going to pay for this. That's all my concern.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And there'll be someone who's outside of this chamber once we close the public comment session to talk to. Next speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. I know most of you here. I grew up in Louisiana with someone who had a green thumb. Now, this is throughout the city. You need to learn to plant the right trees. Trees are going to have roots. I think it has to do a lot with the choice of trees. It's beautiful to green San Francisco, but you have to realize there are people that are going to want to live. Now, who's culpable for the damages done by the trees? That's hard to say. I mean, how can you green the trees and still have people walking around? It's a very hard choice. But I walk all over the city. I see sidewalks on Van Ness that are being uprooted by these palm trees that shouldn't have been planted there in the first place if you're going to have a nice avenue that you want to keep smooth. So you have to choose the proper trees. That's the main issue here. I mean, I love the fact that this San Francisco, you want it to be green like maybe, a beautiful city. But it's not. It's a place where people have to walk. So I know it's a comment. I'm just commenting on the fact that I love trees a lot. But if you can't pick the right trees to plant, whose fault is that? I mean, I have no idea how to solve it. I just see sidewalks destroyed everywhere by the wrong kind of trees. That's the only comment I have to say. I don't think that the property owner should have to pay for some people who want to make the city more beautiful by greening the city. That's my comment. And you have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors and listening audience on the San Francisco Government Channel. That yours truly had a lot to do in the creation of that. But I'm here to parallel something what these people are talking about, a department First of all, I want to compliment and say congratulations to Supervisor Peskin and whomever is helping him with this issue on department heads. Ooh, I'm just tickled pink, no, black. I'm just tickled pink that we have some kind of credibility and accountability that's going to come back to City Hall. And I understand that we got some students here. I want to commend Mr. Brown down in the mayor's office of neighborhood for putting a new program in City Hall that's called, from my understanding, is when you follow them, it's called, damn, I'm trying to think of what it is. But anyway, the program that he got is going on real good. Shadow, there it is, Shadow. I got one. That program, I got the stamp of approval. It is a new era. It's almost like the department heads are going to be followed by these students that's going to be analyzing and finding out what the hell's be going on down here at City Hall. Ooh, sometimes it get silly on. Anyway, I got 40 seconds. But I just want to commend Supervisor Peskin what you're doing, and I'll be there Thursday to testify on those 3 of those agencies. A lot more. Even this agency you're talking about, Department Works, need to be crumbled up in there, find out what the hell's going on. A lot of departments in San Francisco need to have some kind of oversight board, because everything is going really crazy here in the city by the bay. So I just thought I'd get up to say what I had to say there, parallel to what these property owners trying to find out what is Department of Works doing. Is it unclear, and y'all want to charge them more? I think Peskin, you need to find out what's going on over in that department too.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Some years ago, right in front of City Hall, the sidewalk, we had cracks. Nobody bothered to fix the cracks till I brought it to the attention of somebody who deals with that issue. So a contractor did some work. And if all of y'all go there parking your cars and everything, and you saw that work wasn't done properly. So I had to go again, and the job was fixed. Now, we have these sessions, and this shouldn't be an exercise in futility. 4 of the people who came here said they came here, they took time off their work to state their case, only for nobody to get back to them. Now, I know the heads of departments are hearing to me, and they may say, Francisco, you've got nothing to do with this. Yes, I've got something to do with it. And I'll be here again talking on another subject. This is what happens. The supervisors have to represent a constituency. When one lady came here and she said she is not going to pay, and she said it 3 times, that district supervisor was kind of looking at her funny. You keep looking at us funny. So I'm saying this, if you have this exercise, don't make it an exercise in futility. The people come here, they state something, if it's factual, some adjudication should take place. And most importantly, let me remind you, supervisors, I know all of y'all, there has to be a respect. If you don't have respect for the constituents, you will not get respect. And some of y'all do not deserve any respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. And this hearing is been held. With that, I wanted to let members of the public know that members of the Department of Works, Public Works is right outside the chamber. So if you have an issue, please take your issue to those members of the Department of Public Works. They will then bring this particular item back to our attention with recommendations on individual adjustments, and we will continue with the work of the board. So if you're here for your sidewalk, you can talk to a member of the Department of Public Works right outside the chamber. All right, with that, let's go back to our agenda, Madam Clerk. We were...
Item 20.
On item number 20.
Item number 20 is an ordinance amending the Environment Code to prohibit the sale of food serviceware and other specified products that are made from polystyrene foam or that are non-recyclable and non-compostable, setting operative dates and affirming the CEQA determination.
Thank you, colleagues. This styrofoam, polystyrene ban came about, I guess, through legislation many, many years ago by our former, well, he's our current colleague, but he was on the board at the time and introduced legislation banning polystyrene at one point, and this is an opportunity to do so and take it to the next level. This is good environmental legislation, and during the hearing, I thanked a lot of members who helped pull this together. We work with the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce and other industries as well as environmental organizations to try and broker the right compromise in order to not have a negative impact on small businesses and other companies who use polystyrene for medical supplies and other packing items that can't necessarily use other types. There aren't other alternatives in use at this time. I know that this industry is evolving. It's changed significantly, and we must do everything we can if something is available as an alternative to protect the environment. This is good policy. It's a step in the right direction. It's the right balance between small business and protecting the environment, and I, colleagues, would appreciate your support, and I thank Supervisor Peskin for his co-sponsorship on this particular item. And with that, I'd also like to thank my Chief of Staff, Connor Johnston, for spearheading this effort and getting this legislation through and working with many of the parties involved to come to the conclusion of this legislation. And with that, Madam Clerk, on item number 20, can you please call the roll?
On item 20, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Aye. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Aye. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Aye. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr. Aye. Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner. Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
This ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. Item number 21.
Item number 21 is a resolution selecting Macias, Guinea, and O'Connell as independent auditors for the Controller's Office and the separately audited departments of the city for an amount not to exceed approximately $9.4 million over a 4-year contract term to commence July 1st, 2016 with 1 year, 3 option to renew.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Item number 22.
Item number 22 is an ordinance amending the administrative code to create a 4th preference for people who live or work in San Francisco, in addition to existing preferences in allocating city affordable housing units and making various appropriate findings.
Supervisor Weiner.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the Land Use and Transportation Committee for unanimously forwarding this item to the full board with a positive recommendation. Colleagues, this legislation would put into our code what frankly should have been there a long time ago, and that is to provide a live-work preference to people who live or work in San Francisco in our lottery for affordable housing. We need to make sure that our own residents and people who have a deep connection to the city, living here or working here, have priority in terms of accessing affordable housing. However, colleagues, today I had announced earlier today that it is my intent to amend this legislation in committee, and so I'm going to make a motion that we send this back to committee to amend it to also include an affordable housing preference for people who are burned out of their units by fire. It's been in the news a lot recently. There have been some just horrific fires in the Mission, but unfortunately our problems with fires in this city, and our city of many old wood frame buildings with old electrical systems and so forth, is not limited to the Mission. We see it in a number of neighborhoods, even though the Mission has been the hardest hit. We have had fires in the Castro and Noe Valley, I know in the Haight and other parts of the city. And every time we have one of these fires, in addition to the immediate public safety problem, and in addition to the destruction of property, every single time there are a certain number of tenants, and it could be a smaller number or a larger number, whose lives are completely transformed in a very negative way, losing their possessions and then losing their housing. And for the lucky ones, they're able to find alternative housing, either permanently or they can hold on until the building is fixed and they move back in. For others, they're not so lucky, either because it takes a very long time to repair the building and they just can't hold on. Our fire victims they're in crisis. They need all the help they can get. In 2011, I authored legislation, the Good Samaritan legislation, that this board unanimously passed, that creates an avenue for landlords to provide affordable rents on a temporary basis to tenants who are displaced by disasters. This is the next step to say that for this limited group of people, lower income tenants who are displaced by fire, they will receive a preference in our affordable housing lottery. So colleagues, we are working now with the city attorney to draft that amendment, and I will be making that amendment in committee. So at this point, I request that this legislation be sent back to the Land Use and Transportation Committee for further proceedings.
Okay, so is that a motion to send it back to committee? Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Colleagues, can we take this without objection? Without objection, this item will be sent back to committee. Item number 23.
Item number 23 is an ordinance amending the planning code to facilitate development of the Potrero Hope SF project by revising the zoning map from public to residential mixed districts, moderate density, revising the zoning map sheet to rezone the parcel from a 40 to a 50-foot height and bulk limit, and making various appropriate findings.
Okay, colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. Item 24.
Item number 24 is an ordinance amending the Transportation Code to consolidate and clarify existing fare evasion regulations, revise passenger conduct violations, authorize the Municipal Transportation Agency to establish separate fine amounts for youth, and affirming the CEQA determination.
Supervisor Marr?
Thank you, colleagues. I wanted to especially thank Supervisor Campos for joining me, along with the Youth Commission and many young activists, in supporting decriminalization of fare evasion for young people. I think the problem has been, and it's been a concern of mine and others, that low-income communities are heavily impacted because of the criminalization of young people for fare evasion over the years. And administering this violation in the court system usually has placed young people into the court system. I think children should not have to fight in court for these fines, and it should be aligned, like for adults are since 2012, to treat it as an administrative ticket. So this issue is aligned with many of the same principles of free immunity for youth that Supervisor Campos and many young activists and organizations led years ago. So decriminalizing fare evasion for transit-dependent youth is a good thing for our communities. I think it promotes equity within the system, since it's consistent now with adult fare evasion, which was decriminalized several years ago. Also, I'll just say that this will help us keep young people out of the criminal justice system, and I urge support.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Seeing no other names on the roster, and before we move on, Madam Clerk, please add my name as a co-sponsor to this legislation.
Yes, Madam President.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. All right, folks, let's go to committee reports. Madam Clerk, please call items 31 and 32 together.
Item numbers 31 and 32 were considered by the Land Use and Transportation Committee at a regular meeting on Monday, June 27th at 1:30 p.m. and were referred without recommendation as committee reports. Item number 31 is an ordinance accepting the irrevocable offer of public infrastructure acquisition facilities associated with Mission Bay South Redevelopment Plan Block 13, accepting an irrevocable offer of dedication for real property, declaring city property as open public right-of-way, dedicating property for public use, amending ordinance number 1061 to establish official sidewalk width, accepting a public works order and making appropriate findings. Item number 32 is an ordinance dedicating property commonly known as Mission Bay Park P26 as open public right-of-way and naming the new park Mariposa Park, accepting an irrevocable offer for the acquisition facilities that comprise the park improvements, designating said facilities for public open space and park purposes, accepting a public works order and making appropriate findings.
Okay. Supervisor Kim, no comments. This came out of committee with no recommendation. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On items 31 and 32, Supervisor Campos. Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner. Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinances pass unanimously on the first reading. All right, let's go to roll call for introductions.
First up on roll call for introductions is Supervisor Campos. Thank you. Supervisor Cohen. Thank you. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, colleagues. I just have one in memoriam today. It's with a heavy heart. I'm introducing an in memoriam for the former clerk of the Board of Supervisors, John L. Taylor, who recently passed. He's one of the city's longest serving and most respected public servants, working in the clerk's office and clerk of the Board of Supervisors for 16 years. He brought a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience to our board, acting as a steadying presence with a sense of humor and sense of fairness. He served many members on the Board of Supervisors and the public with distinction. He created a bulletin board which allowed City Hall staff members to interact with each other on a daily basis and created a sense of camaraderie on the board that is important to doing our public's business. He also had a distinguished and nation-spanning career outside of San Francisco, serving as a city administrator of Lakewood, New Jersey, Fresno, Kansas City, and Berkeley, as well as working in the Stanford Research Institute. He will be missed by all of us in City Hall, but leaves behind a legacy of service and a life in which he tirelessly worked to make our city better. He's survived by his loving wife, Barbara, and his children, Kathy, Bob, Bill, and Susan. And hopefully, Madam Clerk, Madam President, we could do this on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. And colleagues, on behalf of the entire members of the Board of Supervisors, we will adjourn this meeting on behalf of the late John Taylor without objection. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. Today, I'm requesting a hearing to review bike lane safety and bike lane enforcement. For the last several years in San Francisco, close to 30 people have been killed on their bikes, and 200 or more have been injured while cycling through our city streets. And last week, 2 women lost their lives on their bikes. I live on the street where Catherine Slattery lost her life. I use that corner almost every day as a pedestrian, driver, and a cyclist. Even today, I bike down that very bike lane to come to work here at City Hall. From my own experience, as well as hearing from our constituents, we have been working for the last 2 years, along with Supervisor John Avalos and Supervisor Norman Yee's office, to form and push for Vision Zero to get cultural and design shifts to ensure that 0 individuals are dying on our streets due to these types of collisions. We know that many of our city agencies have been making the much-needed improvements throughout our neighborhoods and our high-injury corridors, increasing the number of signaled crosswalks and bike lanes throughout the city. And as we continue to grow and become a denser city, it is truly time to fast-track many of these changes to rapidly improve pedestrian and bike safety. We're also seeing, as we fast-track changes, that we need to also ensure that the long-term changes that we need to see are also in the hopper as well. I was proud to work with SFMTA to get our temporary bike lanes on Howard and Folsom, most recently on Golden Gate, but I think it's time for us to examine when and where we will actually be able to put in protected or raised bike lanes in the future to ensure utmost safety for our growing city and for the growing number of cyclists, including myself, who want to use that as a mode to get around the city. In calling for this hearing, we owe it to our constituents to hear what the city is doing on enforcement and protection of our bike lanes and what more we can do. There is nothing more frustrating than coming down a newly paved green bike lane and seeing a truck or car double parked, forcing you out into lanes of traffic with vehicles, promoting conflict and potential collisions with vehicles with drivers in their cars. It also, of course, provides additional tension, as been well documented by street blogs and many bikers who are now biking with cameras on their helmets so that they can video what they get to see on a daily basis on our streets. I also want to thank my colleagues for co-sponsoring this hearing, Supervisor Mar, Avalos, Peskin, Campos, and Yee, who have concurred that the situation has risen to a level, again, that we need to have a citywide discussion on this matter. Last, I want to raise that we must continue to think out of the box when it comes to this issue. One of the measures that SFMTA and our Transportation Authority have been pushing has been unsafe speed throughout our city. We have all seen the diagrams before. If you are hit by a car traveling at 40 miles an hour, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians are likely to survive. But at 20 miles an hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians are likely to survive. Speed is absolutely essential. Lowering speed is absolutely essential to our city reaching Vision Zero. Walk SF by Coalition has said that speed is responsible for 10 times the number of pedestrian injuries in San Francisco as driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. In the cases like the ones that we saw last week, it appears that unsafe speed was a very large issue in the cyclist fatalities that we saw at Golden Gate Park and again at Folsom and 7th. We must follow the direction of cities like Chicago and New York that have looked creatively at speed enforcement and really examine, and hopefully at the state level, speed enforcement cameras here in San Francisco. I look forward to working with my colleagues, Walk SF and Bike Coalition, to ensure we are providing a safer city for everyone. And finally, I did submit an in memoriam for Corporal Leonis earlier today. I'd also like to submit an in memoriam on behalf of Catherine Ann Slattery. On June 22, 2016, 26-year-old cyclist Catherine Ann Slattery was killed by a speeding driver who ran a red light at 7th and Folsom. This act of gross negligence took the life of this very young woman who is described as vibrant and lively. She is the beloved daughter of John and Margaret Slattery. She graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a degree in mechanical engineering. Per her memorial site, quote, Kate sought engineering and that they, like Kate, could follow their dreams across the world. Kate loved children, and even as a brilliant, talented professional woman, continued to see the world through their eyes as a place of endless possibility. She was a shining light for family and friends. Kate is now with God. In lieu of flowers, the family has requested that donations be made in her memory to the Society of Women Engineers at societyofwomenengineers.swe.org. We will list this on our Facebook page if folks are interested in donating. But we also have to ensure that lives lost like those of Catherine cannot be in vain, and that we as a city step up to ensure that we are increasing the physical design engineering possible to make our streets lessen in conflict and safer for all of our pedestrians and cyclists, and that we do more as much as we can around the issue of enforcement as well. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Mar.
Thank you. Colleagues, it's time for San Francisco, 5 years into the tech boom and our housing crisis, to require big technology companies to pay their fair share to address the housing and homelessness impacts on San Francisco. I wanted to thank Supervisors Aaron Peskin and Supervisors David Campos and our broad and diverse coalition of community organizations that are introducing this with us today. The rapid tech boom in our city and region threatens our city's ability to thrive and prosper. The surge in housing demand brought on by the rapid growth of the tech sector and its highly paid workforce makes it increasingly difficult for working families and people to remain in their homes in San Francisco, to live near where they work, and to contribute to our city. By making tech corporations pay their fair share, we can better keep small businesses running and ensure everyone who calls San Francisco home can afford to live here. That's why I'm introducing with my colleagues the Fair Share Homeless and Housing Impact Tax that will assess a 1.5% workforce expenditure tax on large tech corporations based in San Francisco to fund affordable housing and homeless services. It would also reduce fees on small business owners so more independent merchants can remain in our city. It actually cuts those business registration fees in half. This ballot measure would bring an estimated $120 million in annual revenue to expand and preserve affordable housing. Requiring San Francisco's large tech companies and corporations to pay their fair share will help address the industry's impact on rising rents, higher costs of living, and instability for residents and small businesses. The city has offered millions in tax breaks to a handful of successful tech corporations since 2011. That's the past 5 years, eliminating a key source of revenue that would help improve our city. We can also lessen the tax burden on small businesses so more mom-and-pop shops can also continue to call San Francisco home. The tech boom in San Francisco has priced out longtime residents and small merchants out of places to live and make a living in our city. We can't afford to lose any more of our incredible diversity, the unique character, the special beauty, and the strong fabric of our beloved communities. San Francisco must remain home to people from all walks of life. This Fair Share Homelessness and Housing Impact Tax is an example of the city stepping up with both solutions and funding to address our urgent housing and homelessness crisis for the benefit of the common good. We can change the rules with the Homelessness and Housing Impact Tax to shift the tax burden away from working families and mom-and-pop shops and hold the booming technology sector accountable for its role in the housing crunch. I thank my co-sponsors again, Supervisors Peskin and Campos, and our Jobs with Justice, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, SF Rising, Coalition on Homelessness, Coalition for their courage and vision in moving this measure forward. I wanted to give a special thanks to my aide, legislative aide Nicholas Pagalatos, who worked closely with our city attorney Scott Reiber, putting in many, many hours putting this together. Hopefully this moves our communities and our neighborhoods forward. I look forward to your support and the dialogue that follows. Also, following up on Supervisor Kim's hearing, call for a hearing, I also will join in support of specific action plans and the Vision Zero Coalition's efforts to make sure that no more bicyclists or no more pedestrians are killed. I think the tragedy that Jane Kim brought up of Kate Slattery's death by a hit-and-run driver is very similar and not an isolated incident from the other killing, Heather Miller, 41 years old, riding through Golden Gate Park. I'd also like to ask if we could end our meeting with an in memoriam in honor of Ms. Heather Miller, 41 years old, who was, as Supervisor Kim mentioned, tragically killed while biking through Golden Gate Park on JFK Avenue or JFK Street by 30th Avenue, very close to where I used to live, on a stretch of JFK Drive that doesn't have a protected bike lane. June 22nd, I believe, the date that both women perished in the evening, should be remembered as a dark day in San Francisco history. Heather Miller, who was 41, loved her dog and a good glass of wine. Her friends and family, I express my condolences also to the family of Kate Slattery as well. I think with the Vision Zero Coalition and the upcoming meeting coming up from the Vision Zero Task Force, I look forward to what kinds of specific actions that will be developed. I also wanted to acknowledge that the San Francisco Bike Party will be hosting a community vigil and ride. I believe it's tonight from 7 to 8:30 p.m. I think it's important not to see the deaths of these two young women as isolated incidents and for us to look for the patterns and to really come up with specific action plans with the Bicycle Coalition and the Vision Zero Coalition. So I look forward to the hearing and the upcoming Vision Zero meeting. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Mars. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, colleagues. As we all know, this body has had many lengthy conversations with regard to how to address the intractable issue of homelessness and ease the suffering of our fellow San Franciscans who find themselves without a safe place to sleep, access critical services, or even use bathrooms. When I was last on the Board of Supervisors, there were many discussions, and those discussions continue. Our 2015 homeless count revealed that some 70% of our homeless were previously housed in San Francisco at the time they became homeless, and the top two causes of their homelessness were eviction and divorce. We know that currently there is one shelter bed for every 5.5 homeless people in our city, and we have over 800 people waiting for shelter. Chronicle reporter Kevin Fagan recently did an expose that traces some of the root causes of the plague of homelessness here in California, starting from the fallout of the Vietnam War and our society's shameful treatment of veterans to the crippling effects of the gutting of our federal social and housing programs under 1980s Reaganomics. Despite the efforts of 6 mayoral administrations, including Mayor Jordan's Matrix program, Mayor Newsom's Care Not Cash program, thousands of homeless continue to suffer on our city streets. Earlier this month, our independent budget and legislative analysts put together an analysis that showed we are spending over $20 million annually to cite homeless residents for quality of life crimes under the city's sit-lie ordinance, and yet our own laws are not decreasing the number of homeless on our streets. We all know these facts and figures. This is not a new revelation, and it's not solved by creating more failed programs that attempt to solve homelessness by criminalizing it. I am delighted that we have all come together today on the second reading to create a Department of Homelessness, to stop the siloization between departments, and to fully implement a housing first policy that prioritizes exit housing with wraparound services and a clear pathway to transitioning residents into permanently affordable housing. We need housing that is affordable and accessible. Today, I'm asking for your support to put people before politics and compassionate common sense and proactive solutions rather than divisive and more failed policies. We've been working to get our Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing off the ground, and I think that it is critical that we enable and empower our new director, Mr. Kozycki, who brings his years of experience from the affordable housing world and CHP, and we all know cares deeply about ending homelessness. We need to give him an opportunity to do his job. We all worked with Supervisor Campos when Mr. Kozycki was first hired, and we all agreed to delay Supervisor Campos's legislation so that Mr. Kozycki could work with him, so that needed amendments could be made, so that we could speak with one voice and not turn homelessness into a divisive political issue. We reserve money in the budget to be used for the new Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing to the tune of over $11 million in the coming fiscal year and over $47 million in the following fiscal year. Mr. Kozycki has begun the hiring process for staff, and we just opened, under Mayor Lee's leadership, a new navigation center in the Civic Center neighborhood earlier today. President Obama and his Interagency Council on Homelessness have set forth a host of recommendations on how we should all address homeless encampments. We don't need a 24th law, as outlined in Nato Green's recent piece in the San Francisco Examiner, to try and bludgeon this issue and continue to go nowhere. We should be endeavoring to follow the recommendations of the Obama administration guidelines and work together to solve homelessness by implementing proactive policies that are crafted in consultation with the new department and its director. Today I'm introducing a resolution, this is a separate subject, in response to the California Public Utilities Commission's solicitation for public comments regarding criminal background checks for drivers of so-called transportation network companies such as Uber, Lyft, and other such companies. The CPUC has expressed its intent to assess public safety risks and to ensure that the safety of the public is not compromised in the operation of these TNCs, and the resolution I am introducing today supports that call to ensure the public's safety. Under the current regulatory regime, the City and County of San Francisco, as we all know, regulates the traditional taxi cab service industry, but the CPUC has asserted its preemptive jurisdiction over regulation of TNCs. This has contributed to a grossly uneven two-tiered regulatory system to the detriment of an entire existing industry and indeed to the detriment of the public welfare. We know there is a broad consensus among law enforcement officials that fingerprint-based criminal background checks are the gold standard. We also know that the current background checks used by TNCs like Uber and Lyft have missed serious convictions for murder, driving under the influence, and other violent crimes. Too often we hear stories of TNC drivers who should not be on the road committing crimes against the public. In many instances, these crimes could be prevented by adequate background checks. But this issue is also indicative of a broader problem, the two-tiered regulatory system based on a distinction between traditional taxi cabs and TNCs, which is illusory at best, is anti-competitive and fundamentally unfair. And even though the regulations that we have placed on taxi companies, including mandatory workers' comp, requiring commercial licenses, and ensuring ADA compliance, are truly common sense regulation, but they do not apply to TNCs. So the resolution I'm introducing today supports putting TNCs on the same level playing field as traditional taxi cab companies with respect to background checks, not only because we know that fingerprinting is the best method, but also because it is the only way to hold TNCs like Uber and Lyft to the same regulatory standards as taxis. The rest I will submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Supervisor Weiner. Supervisor Yee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, for the past several years, we have probably grown tired of hearing about the plight of caring for trees. So today I'm going to be submitting some legislation, nicknaming it Take Back the Trees. My office receives calls almost on a daily basis from angry constituents that are maddened by fines, as you heard today, or maintenance requests to care for trees that were never previously responsible for. Everyone seems to love trees until they have to pay for maintaining them. While it is a challenge to maintain and grow our urban forests, I think we can all agree on one thing. The city should take care of our street trees. I want to acknowledge the efforts from community organizations such as Friends of the Urban Forests and many supervisors who have worked on creating an urban forestry plan for San Francisco. While a number of tree measures are making their way to the November ballot, I am being asked time and time again by constituents, why can't this happen sooner? Why does it take an election to overturn a decision that can be changed at the Board of Supervisors? Today I am proposing a very simple ordinance to echo that very sentiment. The City of San Francisco should and will take back the responsibility of caring for street trees. Caring for our street trees should be a basic city service. During a recession, the city was forced to make tough decisions to reduce funding in order to save other more critical services. It was the right decision to make then. But in retrospect, it also cost us. We are now living through the negative consequences of tree relinquishment program. In addition to the growing frustration from property owners, we also ended up with a weakened urban forest, with trees killed, unmaintained, and damaged from poor care. We can't reverse what's been done, but we can take responsibility for what the public elected us to do, what our taxpayers expect us to do. I find it disappointing that we have become more and more reliant on private citizens to take care of public services. And every time we find ourselves with a difficult budget decision, we have grown accustomed to creating new special taxes to cover the expenses of what the city should already be prioritizing. We are not making it any easier for working class and middle class families to stay in San Francisco. Regardless of what ends up in the ballot in November, this is something we can do now. If trees are a priority of our constituents and our city, let's make it happen. For now, we can find interim solutions until a longer-term funding stream is determined. The people have already spoken. Let's take back the trees. So that's one item that I'm submitting. And then the second item I'm submitting, colleagues, I think we can all agree that car break-ins, home invasions, and burglaries are a problem for every single one of our districts. In my district, this is the number one issue I hear at every community meeting for the last year. We have held 2 hearings at the Board of Supervisors on this very topic. There has been many reports on auto break-ins, and our city was embarrassingly featured in a number of national publications on our city's inability to curb property crimes. Residents and tourists have had enough. For the past year, I have been working with my community members, local captains, and SFPD on short-term and long-term strategies to reduce property crimes and to invest in more resources to support both community-based prevention and the San Francisco Police Department. That's why I am perplexed that an initiative ordinance was submitted for the November ballot to address property crimes through the creation of a new unit of the San Francisco Police Department. The residents of San Francisco have already spoken loud and clear about this issue. We don't need to go to the ballot box to create a dedicated unit or to provide property crimes more focused attention. The ballot initiatives as proposed cannot be amended or changed. The proposals do not even have time to be vetted or discussed. This is a real disservice to the San Francisco people. While I believe having a centralized unit on property crimes that the San Francisco Police Department could be helpful, I'm also concerned about what that will mean to our local precincts. The officers who know the neighborhoods and are most familiar with the community members will get lost. I am also concerned about whether this would be the most efficient and effective method to address property crimes. However, nothing can be changed on this ballot initiative. We can push for something better. We can push for something here and now. I would like to propose a way for us to come together on this issue. These are decisions that can clearly be made at the Board of Supervisors, not at the ballot box. Our legislation process provides us with the opportunity to engage with stakeholders, community members, local police captains, and the police commission to create something that can work. The version I am submitting today is the same version that was submitted to the Department of Elections, word for word. I see this as a starting point for us to work on something we can all support. I look forward to working with all of you to unify and commit to a sensible, thought-out solution. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. Colleagues, I have I'll stand up. I have 3 items for introduction today. Since March of 2011, I've been serving on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. In August of 2012, August 6, 2012, the Chevron refinery in Richmond had a fire, blew up, and sent 15,000 people seeking medical care at local hospitals. Since that time, the staff of the Air District have been working on rules to limit emissions from refineries, both carbon gas emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, as well as toxic emissions, including nitrogen dioxide and sulfur dioxide. I am now submitting a resolution that's calling for, in the mix of measures that the staff is recommending, that we include numeric caps on emissions at refineries. Currently, that is not being proposed. Refineries are emitting what is already below what is allowed by the EPA, and we want to be able to make sure that they actually don't increase their emissions to within what the EPA allows. So extending numeric caps will ensure that we're not seeing greater emissions of carbon dioxide that is having an impact on climate change, as well as toxic emissions that is having an impact on Bay Area residents' health. So I have a measure that's been supported by labor and community groups in the Bay Area, in particular refinery workers in the Bay Area, as well as residents who are close to the fence lines of refineries, to make sure that in the mix of measures that the Air District provides, that we are including these numeric caps to prevent greater emissions at refineries. Similar resolutions are being done in the city of Richmond. They'll be voting on July 5th. They're actually meeting the week of July 4th, and I expect that measure will pass there. And other jurisdictions around the Bay Area as well are submitting similar resolutions. I am also submitting a hearing request. This hearing request is related to item 37, which is on our calendar today. Item 37 is urging our San Francisco Employees Retirement System to divest from firearms and ammunition manufacturers. Item 37 was already introduced and voted on unanimously by the Board of Supervisors 2 years ago, closely after Sandy Hook, Newtown massacre. And we've also that same year had introduced a measure to divest from fossil fuel companies as well. I've been focused on making sure that SFERS follows through on its promises, in particular around fossil fuel divestment, and staff have been a huge impediment to making sure that we can actually make that divestment real and happen. Since 2013, when we originally passed our resolution on fossil fuel divestment, SFR's whole investment portfolio was $15 billion. Now it's $20 billion. But they've actually, in that time where their investment portfolio has grown, they've lost $500 million that was invested in fossil fuel companies. Despite our resolution, despite engaging with them to make divestment a reality. So far, they have not taken any action on divesting from ammunitions and gun manufacturers, and I think just doing another resolution is not worthwhile. So I'm actually calling for a hearing to have the SFRs come and report to the Board of Supervisors what their progress has been so far. I also think that we are really missing the mark when we talk about divesting from guns and we talk about gun control if we don't talk about how gun manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers are inseparably intertwined with the military-industrial complex. If we're talking about doing gun control, we have to have control of our military munitions manufacturers as well. Did you know, colleagues, that Obama is requesting that we actually upgrade our nuclear arsenal by $1 trillion over the next 30 years? That is $1 trillion that is not going to be going to healthcare, to housing, to education. That is our future being destroyed by the militarization of our planet. And so I'm calling for a hearing as well that the SFRs report to us about what is the city's investments in military contractors, not just gun manufacturers, but military contractors. And then we'll come back after that report with a decision on whether we should divest from military contractors as well. I'm still waiting for the peace dividend that we were promised 25 years ago, and it seems it's perpetual war. I had a quote from Eisenhower, which I won't use, but he talked about how the military-industrial complex, he first coined that his outgoing speech when he was leaving the presidency. He talked about how our political, cultural, and spiritual life as a country are being plagued and destroyed by the military-industrial complex. I think 50, 60 years later, he's proven to be right. Lastly, I have an in memoriam for Joseph G. Lambert. I mentioned him last week, but now I have an official in memoriam. Joseph Lambert was someone who I had honored here during Small Business Month about 3 years ago. He was closing his business down. It was Creative Music on Ocean Avenue and Mission Street, where he had held shop for about 30 years. He had a great business selling music and records. His passion was blues and jazz. He was always a great person to talk with about music. He had served as a signalman in the Navy, and he worked as a peace officer at the University of San Francisco for 18 years prior to opening up Creative Music Emporium in 1985. He passed away peacefully at 12:35 p.m. on June 13th in the company of his wife, Elba, his niece, Catherine, and her husband, David, and his great-niece, Tiffany Holder. His memorial service will be held Monday, July 11th at Dugan Sarah Mortuary in Daly City at 11 a.m., and Elba, his wife, requests that instead of sending flowers, people could please donate to an organization that was dear to Joseph, the Mentoring Men's Movement, www.mentoringmensmovement.org. Donations can be sent to 5150 Old Redwood Road, Oakland, California, 94619. That concludes my introduction, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. That concludes our roll call for introductions, Madam President.
Thank you. Can you please read public comment?
Yes, at this time, the public may now address the entire Board of Supervisors for up to 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board, to include the minutes and items on the adoption without reference to committee calendar items 35 through 42. Public comment is not allowed when an item has been previously subject to public comment at a Board committee, as in the case with the items on consent, new and unfinished business, or the committee report items 1 through 32. Pursuant to the Board's rules, direct your remarks to the Board as a whole, not to individual supervisors, and not to the audience. Speakers using translation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time. If you would like to display your document on the overhead projector, please state such to SFG TV and remove the document when you should return to live coverage of the meeting.
Thank you. First speaker, please.
Supervisors, today I'm going to speak about Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. And on July the 22nd, you supervisors unanimously declared that day to remember him. So there are going to be two events, one on the 22nd, July the 22nd, mark it on your calendars, and the other one on July the 23rd at the Martin Luther King / J.C. Jones Playground on 3rd Street and Carroll. Now, supervisors, this man should not have been killed or murdered, but he was. And we do meet every Thursday at 350 Rhode Island to discuss about what is happening on our streets of San Francisco and how young men and women are being killed by the police who prefer to shoot first and ask questions later. But I'm here to bring to your attention that in this remembrance, ordinance, or resolution, everybody was very pleased that that day was set aside. But I'm here to request some of you whose heart was touched by his death, if y'all can figure out a way how some money can be appropriated so that this Remembrance Day can be held, much like we do in the military. I know you are not a federal organization, but I do know, and I hope the mayor is hearing, we do have a budget of $9.6 billion. We know we spend $250 million for our homeless, but one or two of y'all, or maybe three or four, who can put your heads together. And this is the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition, so it includes Alex Nieto, Amilcar, and the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Madam President and Supervisors, good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Liu, and I am a software product manager. In my free time, I play the French horn in the Falun Dafa Divine Land Marching Band here in San Francisco. Our band was excluded from the Cherry Blossom Festival Parade in Japantown this year due to interference from the Chinese consulate and its affiliates, simply because members of our band are Falun Gong practitioners who follow the ancient principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. This, in my opinion, is an extension of the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of Falun Gong right here to San Francisco. The brutality of this persecution is highlighted in House Resolution 343, which was passed unanimously by the U.S. House of Representatives on June 13th, condemning organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners in China. Furthermore, on June 22nd, a study by Nobel Peace Prize nominees David Mattis and David Kilgore, as well as investigative journalist Ethan Gutman, was released at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. The report revealed in astonishing detail that up to 1.5 million prisoners of conscience, such as Falun Gong practitioners, were killed for their organs by the Chinese regime since the year 2000. The publication of this report, as well as the persecution of Falun Gong, has since received wide media coverage in the U.S. and Canada. I urge the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and community leaders to take action in stopping the Chinese consulate from bullying our local communities, and I also sincerely encourage everyone in our great city of San Francisco to join the chorus of righteous voices and call for an end to this brutal persecution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Supervisors. My name is David Bu. I'm a San Francisco resident. I was arrested and put into labor camp in Beijing twice just for my belief of Falun Gong. I worked in Beijing office of the Asia Foundation, a San Francisco-based NGO, before I was arrested. In May 2006, several police intruded into my home and found several Falun Gong books. I was arrested and put in the labor camp for over 2 years without any trial. After I was arrested, my wife came to U.S. from UK to seek help. In 2007, 8 Congresspeople, including Congresswoman Zolofgren, co-signed several letters to Chinese officials requesting them to release me. With the help of U.S. government, I came to U.S. at the end of 2008 with my daughter, soon after I was released. I'm grateful to the U.S. government and other people who have helped me and my family. Now my wife, my 11-year-old daughter, and I live in San Francisco. We enjoy the life in the diversified community here. I heard of the Cherry Flower Festival Parade incident a few weeks ago and feel being discriminated as a Falun Gong practitioner. Just 2 weeks ago, U.S. Congress unanimously passed the resolution number 343, requesting the Chinese government to stop the organ harvesting and resolution and persecution of Falun Gong. The U.S. government already took a clear stand on this issue. I hope you can help to keep the diversity of this beautiful city and the core value of this nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next
just
speaker,
one
please.
more. This is a letter from the Congress people. Thanks.
I came here actually for I think it's worthy and a very good request. Okay, so after the House Resolution 343 that condemned organ harvesting against a Falun Gong practitioner in China was passed on June 13th, a new report was released just a week ago about the same topic, and which was widely reported, which was mentioned by previous speaker. So basically, I want to introduce a little bit about those authors of the report. 2 are renowned Canadian attorney. One of them is the former Canadian Assistant Secretary of State. The third author is Ethan Gutman, an investigative reporter who wrote for many medias and interviewed by many medias. So this report has 800 pages, 2,000 footnotes. It identified 712 organ transplanting hospitals in China and provide details about 160 of them. Also interviewed numerous people. So conclusion is gruesome. Okay, slow, motion genocide in China has led to over 1 million organs removed from unwilling donors. So, Madam President, supervisors, and the member of the public, I know that this is a little bit beyond belief. Many people feel so when they first heard of it, including the author themselves. After the world discovered what really happened to 6 million Jewish people in the Holocaust, the civilization world vowed never again. What if it happened again? What if when it happened again, the perpetrator tried to cover it up wherever he can, and the Japantown parade of San Francisco become unwillingly a victim or an accomplice of the crime? So the issue raised by this report, as well as the Resolution 343, warrant a closer look. Some NGO are inviting the investigators, those three gentlemen, to San Francisco. I would like to ask our Board of Supervisors, when they come, would you be willing to invite them to come here to take a stand, share with you how they did the finding and how they conclude?
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Madam President and the Supervisor. My name is Annie Neal, and I am a member of the Divine Land Marching Band, which was rejected from the Japantown Parade on April 17th. We have been coming here to help you see the real matter behind this rejection, which is the crime against humanity in China. Ethan Gutman, an investigative reporter, was invited to a congressional hearing last Thursday. His recent study concludes as many as 1.5 million organ transplant surgeries in China for the last 15 years, 10 times more than the Chinese government is willing to admit. May I play a piece of what he said last Thursday?
Cannot solve this problem by pretending that prisoners of conscience have not been harvested. We cannot verify self-proclaimed medical reform by arranged visits to a few Chinese transplant hospitals. In the words of Dr. Jacob Levy from the TTS Ethics Committee and Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting, as the son of a Holocaust survivor, I feel obliged to not repeat the dreadful mistake made by the International Red Cross visit to the Theresienstadt Nazi concentration camp in 1944, in which it was reported to be a pleasant recreation camp. In short, the medical community cannot solve this problem alone. They need House Resolution 343, they need our research, and they need new investigations. They need to have oversight over Americans going to China for organs, and they need the support of the American people. According to Levy, not a single Israeli has gone to China for a transplant since Israel took a stand against organ tourism in 2008. Cutting off HMO funding wasn't enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Madam President and the Supervisors. My name is Tom Shang, and I am a member of the Divine Land Marching Band, and I play bass drum. I came here also to share with you the facts about the crime of organ harvesting in China against Falun Gong practitioners and other prisoners. I would like to introduce to you Mr. David Mattis. Mattis is a renowned human rights attorney in Canada. He also served in the Canadian delegation to Stockholm International Forum on the Holocaust. The following is a short piece of what he said in the U.S. congressional hearing on organ harvesting last Thursday.
Organ transplant abuse in China is primarily a donor source problem, not a supply problem, not a patient demand problem. We could end transplant tourism into China entirely, and organ transplant abuse in China would still continue. Yet we must do what we can to avoid complicity in that abuse. House Resolution 343 calls on the United States Department of State to conduct a detailed analysis on state-sanctioned organ harvesting from non-consenting prisoners of conscience in the annual Human Rights Report. I would suggest that this analysis must be more than just a presentation of the work that we and other researchers have done, coupled with empty Chinese government denials. The Department of State Bureau of Human Rights, to fulfill the mandate given by the House, should come to its own conclusions. There also needs to be a more direct confrontation of transplant tourism. U.S. legislation should make organ transplant abuse and brokerage extraterritorial crimes. In conclusion, let me say, when it comes to abusive transplantation, we have to think not only of the patient in need of an organ, but also the source of the organ. The U.S. must do everything in its power to stop that from happening. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, supervisors. With the high technology we have in San Francisco by the city by the day, people could come here and really express their concerns. But now they only have a minute and a few seconds here. I'm here speaking on behalf of the African American black Negroes here in San Francisco with the out-migration. I just found out today that Director Sparks of the Human Rights Commission is no longer there, in which her department was giving the out-migration and fumbled it. Speaking of department heads, being the czar of the out-migration gives me the power that's invested in me to monitor all department heads that have something to do with this. And I'm so grateful Supervisor Peskin and the rest of them is getting ready to create a commission to oversee a lot of these department heads that have been running rapid for many of years with no accountability. Most of them don't know what the hell is going on. And a lot of them in my community spending big time money, unaccountable. Let me just go on script here. The out-migration, I'm going to ask our supervisors to have some legislations to put money aside with this $8.9 billion for out-migration for the younger generation, department heads. Set asides. You can't really call it 209s now, but you can set aside money now. Collectively, supervisors, legislatively, you could do that. So, conflict resolution, collective accountability, trust, and transparency must be in our communities. We must have conversations about legislations that's going to go through our generations. No more lip talk. This is a new career. Anyway, I don't have enough time, but I try to stick.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, President Breed and all the cabal. My name is still Christopher Dahl, and I live at 6th and Howard, 10 blocks and less than 40 years from sea level. I rise to comment on San Francisco's most notorious G-spot. That's a Google spot. That is to say, the bus stop at 8th and Market. This is the spot that you, members of the cabal, don't want subjected to a CEQA process. Well, I'm going to give you my CEQA, Christopher's environmental quality analysis. If I could get the overhead, please, and you might start my time, Madam Clerk. This is not an underutilized muni stop. It is one of the most heavily trafficked muni stops in the city. It is one of the most heavily trafficked vehicular intersections in the city. It is the transfer point for the last BART stop downtown and for the Civic Center Metro and numerous surface bus routes. This is the most heavily trafficked pedestrian pathway in one of the most in our beloved city and county. This is also my regular path on the way to and from my gym every other day. And this is a mess, a design disaster, a tragic consequence of pathetic planning and inept implementation. This is unacceptable. This is an outrage, and it's going to kill somebody eventually. Thank you, President Breed.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Sally Johnson, and I've been looking at all these categories that was not even in the purpose of, solving crimes and being able to lift some of these accordions up that was supposed to be done and was supposed to be talked to about the hearings and other necessary. I went to one just the other day on the 17th, and they lied to me that I wasn't supposed to be in there. The cops did that too. So somebody is doing a lot of damage by not passing the cancer, on this resolution, and everything. And it's all over vote, and it's jealousy of a vote. And I'm getting tired of telling everybody what we should be doing, and then nobody's been doing anything because they want to be voted. And that's awful because of some message that they've been putting money on, and nothing's been happening but murder and killing, and no cure or nothing to succeed in schooling and everything else. And this has been going to have monotonous benefits for somebody that trying to help the world in peace and harmony because of car or airplane flights. And this is, unreal because of their stupidity of going on a vote. And that's really obnoxious hearings that I don't even know nothing about, and telling me I'm not supposed to be in there, and a bunch of crap with the police department. Now there is going to be, police department enforcement as soon as I get a gossip. I'm telling you, this is not.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next speaker, please.
Lavette Arnold. I've been here 55 years. July will be 56. This is my home. And Melina, like usually, she wants to run out, because I've always been coming to her. They all say, go to your supervisor. That's what I thought you guys were here for, so we can come to you and tell you what's going on in the community. That's what you guys are all for. You guys all got your own little areas. When I can't even come to somebody for help, and that's one of your guys' colleagues. But any event, I've been living here. My mother died here. My family died here. My son died here. That's on my chest. And they're trying to push me out because I'm protesting against the crooked police. I'm protesting against unfair housing. I'm protesting about this mayor, So now everybody's getting together and they're trying to push me out. But I'm not leaving. I'm fighting to live, fighting to stay in my own community. But the sad thing is when I can't go to my own supervisor for help. And I've been there. I got papers showing. I make sure I get copies of every time I show up and ask for help. I only get $888. For me protesting, they raised my rent to $788. I just want to live here, and this is where I want to die. This is my home. And I see all the people, there's good working people being put in cars with their children. And like I said, this is my home. I'm a San Francisco resident. This is my home. And you guys are pushing us out, and I'm not going nowhere. This is where I'm going to die at. I promise you guys that. I'm not leaving my home. I'll leave that home, but I can't even get nobody to help me find me a home for 2 years. I'm bald because I protest the mayor. I protest the police. So everybody's getting together and saying we're not going to help her. I just talked to Melina out there. She said because we had an argument that she said she's not going down.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Salah Hakuya Chandler. My son was murdered, Yalani Chinyama Rende, the quadruple homicide. I thank everyone for sending your prayers out to me. It's been 1.5 years. The case is still unsolved, and I'm growing a lot and trying to deal with the reality of my son being murdered. I come here for various issues, but today I'm here in regards to Puerto Rico. She's been an activist in San Francisco and Bayview for at least, I know, over 15, 20 years. I have seen this young woman fight for the children, and we all have our issues, so do you. Her son was murdered, just as my son was murdered, and I'm here to support the families of murdered children. So I'm here to support Puerto Rico and asking London if you can help me in any kind of way to find housing for her. She needs housing. We have to put all the issues aside if she got into an argument with Malia. Malia's responsibility is to help those who voted her in. This young woman brought truckloads of people to vote Malia Coins in. She supported Malia Coins in District 10. So I'm asking for anyone that has any type of power to be able to assist myself in helping Miss Puerto Rico. She's disabled and finding a home. And thank you very much for all your prayers once again. And I'm looking forward to coming and helping as many mothers and families that I can who are dealing with these murders of these children, all these babies being murdered, and the families have not been acknowledged. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Michael Petrellis. I'd like to show this headline from an Alabama newspaper on the overhead, please. This headline reads, "This Alabama county won't lower flags after the Orlando massacre." It's from the Birmingham newspaper. Politicians in Alabama refuse to lower the flag after the tragic killing of 49 gay people and some straight people too in Orlando, Florida. Next, I want to show headline, Castro Street Pride flag remains at full mast after Orlando attacks. This story is from a gay newspaper in San Diego. Please come back to me. That story appeared in the San Diego press. I think it is quite shameful that San Francisco's Harvey Milk Plaza lowered the flag for only 3 hours while a political rally took place on June 12. Some characterize it as a vigil. I see it more as a political rally. Regardless, San Francisco, unfortunately, has something in common with a county in Alabama as the only places in the world where flags were not lowered as the president requested from Sunday the 16th through June 16. What does it say about San Francisco that Harvey Milk Plaza's flagpole, which has been privatized by the city and is controlled by the Castro merchants, was one of just a handful of places around the world that did not lower the flag as President Obama requested? I am here to say to everyone who is watching, it is time to have a public discussion about the protocols regarding the rainbow flag at Harvey Milk Plaza, because Harvey would have lowered the flag for Orlando. Thank you. Let's remember the 45 who lost their lives.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Friend.
Overhead, please. Okay, Tom Gilberti, a new housing plan, part 5. I usually never get to it on time because it always runs out. 30% open market, resident, rental or condos, open to the world. And if it's rentals, they're still rent controlled because we want the people to stay. 10%. And now if this is a 100 unit in the Tenderloin or 100 unit in Chinatown, this is what we're getting. 30% new people moving in. 10% if you are a 30-year resident above 65 years old. So we're moving seniors into around the neighborhood. If you're a 20-year resident in the local zip code, we're moving you into the new homes. So if you're a 15-year, for 5%, if you're a 30-year resident from anywhere in the city, a senior, you can move. You have a shot at these 5% of houses. The next 20% of these homes are for teachers, police, firemen, muni people. And we're not saying what price it is. We're not adjusting the price. We're saying these units are for you. And then the last 20% are for people that are the less fortunate. We have a stipend in this city. We have to take care of the people in our city. Fisherman's Wharf, everywhere in the city, we have a lack of people that have adequate housing. And we need to adjust that. The city cannot build it on its own. The private sector needs a new value system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. Yeah, this is the issue I really want to speak about. Now, I've been coming up with this idea for storage lockers. You can solve the homeless crisis, I swear to God, and it won't cost the city any money at all if you make it a non-profit. Now, how you do that, you form a non-profit and you get funding from lots of other foundations which have billions of dollars waiting to do stuff. You won't have to use hardly any of the city's money to do this by using foundation money to do it as a non-profit. When you do that, these storage lockers, which can be compacted and stacked sky high, you can rent those out for like $200-300 a month, and you make them sort of like what they use in submarines. I mean, you can actually do that. You have it designed in a metal thing, manufactured, and then you can stack them sky high. You can put little stairways to them, and you can rent those out to people for $300 or less. I mean, you can solve the homeless crisis this year if you get on the stick. Put me on a committee. I swear to God, I can show you how to do that. And then you can put those things wherever you want because they're very transferable. You can stack those sky high. You can put them in any district you want to around the city just by manufacturing these beautiful little homes. Then you can put them on a lift and carry them to the appropriate spot. That's how you sort of solve the homeless crisis now. You don't have to build new buildings. You don't have to wait for the buildings to be built. You use storage lockers that are manufactured in one site, and then you find the property and you start stacking them up, and you can solve the homeless crisis this year. Put me on one of the committees and I'll show you how it's done. That's how you solve the homeless crisis. Use storage lockers all over the city.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Next speaker, please.
Andrew Yip, Chinatown missionary officer. One is to devote oneself fully for personal cultivation and rescue of others. This is uprightness of justice in principle. With daily works of matching good harmony, one is smoothly being self-alive in projecting one's true heart of mercy and passion of humanity, of sudden awakening. One can reason well in developing tactical solutions in terms of true principle for all daily matters. Political leaders should perform daily works of duties with good consideration in unity of politics, holiness, upright studies, and diverse pathways. With wisdom, humanity, and true courage, one takes on pathways on course of one's heavenly destiny in actualization onto reality in all aspects of daily life. In making of true success of origin of one's destiny, one could manage the uprightness of personal, family, and social order in good achievement. Of personal circumstances facing good or bad outcomes, one should target one's objective in achievement of more good deeds to direct one's life on safe course of action. One may not see a way out in days of difficulties, but this guidance advice is best way to do. With mercy and uprightness as well as humanity and justice, one can develop diverse methodologies to resolve problems of daily matters to the fullest extent. Thank you. Shall never lose hope for worldly rescue. Save our people with uprightness, without bias. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he to the dresser of his vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground? And he answering said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. When Jesus gave this parable, it's obvious what he meant. Judgment day is coming. Judgment day is coming. It was Judgment Day for that Muslim in Orlando. It was Judgment Day for the homosexuals. All of them died in their sins. You might die today. You have to come to Jesus. This is serious, man. This guy mentioned, the rainbow flag wasn't lowered. Listen, Obama's bringing the Muslims in. God says in Romans 5, okay, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. I was praying what the Lord wanted me to say. I only have 2 minutes. I don't have 2 hours, okay? So I'm telling you, we are in the Sabbath year now, the Shemitah. We're definitely in it. It probably started in December 7th. It might have started in spring. It did not start on Rosh Hashanah. That's 6 months too early, okay? Jesus is coming back. I know he said we don't know the day and hour, but he's coming soon. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, he died for your sins. He didn't have any sins. We all have sins. He didn't have any sins. He made payment. He resurrected the third day. What man in history except Jesus ever appealed to prophecies written down about him before he was born? Crying out loud. Isaiah 53, Psalm 22. Why aren't, listen, the Christian.
Thank you. Madam President, there appears to be no more speakers.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Let's go back to items 29 and 30. Representative from Ms. Lowe from DPW.
Again, I want to reiterate that the Sidewalk Inspection and Repair Program has issued over 3,179 invoices, and 2,779, or 88%, has paid this past year. For the 19 constituents that presented before the board, 3 were invoice disputes in which we will remeasure and reevaluate the bid items that were billed to the property owners. 1 constituent did not receive the invoice. We will email the invoice and advise them to pay by July 8th. 4 will be placed on payment installment plans. We will work with the property owner to implement an appropriate payment plan, and it will not be placed on their property tax. 9 were quality issues that we will have our inspector and contractor follow up and correct. In regards to 2179 12th Avenue, he is requesting for the Sidewalk Inspection and Repair Program's original hearing ruling from the hearing officer. He is still disputing the damage that was caused by a privately maintained tree on his property. We will investigate and research this matter. In regards to 155 Gold Mine Street, I am recommending that the repair cost of $510 be placed on their property tax, totaling to $571.20, including the 12% administrative fee. Under State Highway 5611 and Local Public Works Code Section 706, the fronting property owner is responsible for the repair and maintenance of the sidewalk fronting their property. This is the second Board of Supervisors hearing that the constituent has attended and is still refusing to pay for the work done. I ask that the Board of Supervisors vote in favor of adding the repair costs of 155 Gold Mine to the property tax in the amount of $571.20.
Thank you. I had a few questions, Ms. Lowe. Can we talk a little bit about the quality of the work? I know that was mentioned by some members of the public. And what is your procedure when the work is done? It doesn't necessarily, it's not up to standards. Do you go back? Do you repair it? I mean, what's the plan here?
We do have a We do, our inspector does a completion walk with our contractors, and that is the first time that the property repairs are looked at. After that, we don't go back to look at it, and it's kind of on the property owner to contact us if there are cracks or problems with the work that was done.
And in some cases, for example, if they may not have received a notice and the work gets done and then they receive a bill and that's the first time, or that they've been made aware, I mean, how does that work?
Well, we actually get our information from the assessor's office, and so if their address is not updated with the assessor, then that's the address that we send it to. So in terms of that,
Excuse me, my name is Judy Leong, and not only do we...
Judy Leong, could you identify the department that you're with?
Public Works,
okay.
San Francisco Public Works.
Thanks.
We also not only notify them through our tax assessor's address, but we also post onto the building itself. So they get sort of two notifications.
Okay. The other question that I had was the issue around sidewalks and trees is a real problematic issue. And how is that dealt with? For example, if it's a tree that's not necessarily located, tree roots that are not necessarily located on the property owner's property, but it's someone else's property, but the sidewalk gets damaged as a result of that tree, it's still their responsibility to deal with the sidewalk damage?
I believe it falls on the owner of the tree. So if it is the neighboring unit that owns the tree, it would be their responsibility to fix the damage that the tree causes.
Okay. And what's your policy to deal with low-income residents?
We do have what we call the Sidewalk Nuisance Assistance Program. If they receive the invoice, they can contact us. It is for low income, and they would be placed on it would be placed on the property tax and paid over 5 years.
Okay, so for example, in the case of someone who is elderly, owns a property, only gets Social Security, doesn't have income generated from their property, could barely take care of their property, they, of course we know, still pay their annual property tax. And you're saying in the case of the sidewalk repair, I mean, what are we talking about over the course of 5 years per year, potentially? Like an example of what this will cost addition to what they're already paying in property tax.
So typically the average square footage or the cost, it's around like maybe $500 to $1,000. That included with the 12% administrative fee and over time of a course of a 5-year, that would amount to maybe like, I would say like $200 per property tax. Per year for 5 years, yeah,
which is a lot more than potentially the $500. So that's an additional couple $100 that someone who is low income would have to pay because it's over 5 years.
That is correct.
That doesn't sound like a very good use of, I mean, that doesn't sound like a very good hardship program for really low income residents. That's a lot of extra money that they have to pay. I guess I'm just trying to understand what's the, why is it that someone low income has to pay more? I get that you take out a loan, you pay it back over the years, but this is for hardship.
Yeah. And we also, we do try to work with the property owner, and as you can, as Kristen alluded to, we have, I believe, 3 property owners that are going to pay an installment plan. So we do work with the property owners on that.
But an installment plan with a administrative fee?
No, we if they're going to be paying installment plan, they will not be paying the administrative fee of 12%.
Okay, but if they put it on their property tax over the course of 5 years, they would have to pay an administrative fee.
That's correct.
But if they did an installment plan, what does that mean? That's within a year's time or something?
Yeah, we try to keep it within a year so that they don't have to come to the Board of Supervisor hearings year after year.
Can you give me some examples of the kind of persons we're talking about? I mean, for example, the one woman who is here speaking on behalf of her mother, that's the kind of situation that I'm mostly concerned about.
Yeah, so what we have done is we're going to actually talk to her and find out, what she can pay off over the course of the year.
And this is a sidewalk in front of her home?
And this is the sidewalk in front of her home.
Damaged by a tree or just damaged?
I don't know. I don't have the details of her particular property at this time.
Okay. And I think I'm going to let my colleagues ask a couple of questions, and if I have some, I'll come back to you. Thank you. Supervisor Weiner.
Thank you. To the department, you may not know this off the top of your head, but in terms of the sidewalk damage as part of this list of assessments, you know what percentage are tree related?
I don't have that detailed, but I do know that for this fiscal year and over the next 3 years, or actually next 2 years, we are working on sidewalk maintained tree areas. So I'm not too sure what the percentage is, but I can find that out for you.
Well, my understanding in general was, in terms of sidewalk damage in San Francisco, a pretty high percentage is tree related.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that your understanding too?
That is the correct understanding, correct.
Okay, and would there be any reason for this list of sidewalk damage to be any different from the general proportion? Is there anything unique about this so that this would be different than the general, I think, fact that the bulk of sidewalk damage is tree related?
Well, I do know that this year one of our goals was to actually look at a lot of tree-related areas around the city and county of San Francisco.
So do you believe that that the bulk of these locations on this particular spreadsheet are tree-related damage?
It can possibly, but I would have to do a little more research on that.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. I understand you don't have a breakdown, but it seems like what you're saying is this is probably, these locations of damage, the sidewalk, are probably consistent with the general fact that the bulk of sidewalk damage in San Francisco is tree-related. I mean, you don't have any reason to think that this is any different.
I would conclude that would be feasible.
Okay. Yeah, so, colleagues, I just want to use this opportunity to plug the need to fix this problem. It is absurd that homeowners are required to take care of the trees and fix the sidewalk and be liable and go through all of this for property that is not even theirs, when they may not have planted these trees, may not want the tree, may not have any financial or physical ability to take care of the tree or fix the sidewalk, and yet they're expected to do so. And I agree with, Supervisor Yee introduced legislation before to basically repeal the provisions in the Public Works Code that impose that responsibility for sidewalk and trees on homeowners. And I'm supportive of that. The challenge, of course, is the cost of the city taking that back is almost $20 million a year. And so, I know we're going to be having discussions in this board about the measure that Supervisor Marr and I have put forward, along with Friends of the Urban Forest, to do a ballot measure to take back the trees, take back the tree-related sidewalk damage, take back the liability, and pay for it, and create dedicated funding. Because otherwise, if we just take back the trees and the sidewalks and all that damage, we're going to have to find $20 million a year in the budget, and I'm going to bet my lunch that that isn't going to happen, and we're just going to see a deterioration because these things don't do well in the budget, as we've seen over and over again. So I think, I would love to vote against this because I just philosophically don't agree with doing this to property owners. But we have to fix the problem and do it in a responsible way, which means taking it all back and then putting our money where our mouth is. We just put our budget out of committee on Friday, and no one pushed for the $20 million for DPW to allow them to take back the trees and the sidewalks. No one, as far as I know. We were pushing for a lot of other terrific and important things, but once again, trees and the sidewalks were not, even on the list, let alone in the upper portion of the list. So let's fix this problem. Let's fix it with a funding mechanism that's dedicated so that we can just move on and not have to deal with these hearings anymore because it's ridiculous.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiener. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam President. I mean, there are any number of different kind of lien and tax hearings that come before this body on an annual basis. I just had one procedural question, which is why these sidewalk tax bills have been broken up over a couple of weeks. Is there a reason for that? This is the second hearing we've had on this in a relatively short period of time. Was just because there were so many to deal with?
The first one is actually a separate program. It's the Accelerated Sidewalk Abatement Program. How we describe it is that one is more of a reactive program, and the Sidewalk Inspection Repair Program, which we're talking about today, is more of the proactive program.
In other words, in the proactive program, the city affirmatively inspects. In the reactive program, people complain?
Correct.
Okay. It seems like they could all be consolidated into one hearing, but that is neither here nor there. The thing that concerns me, I mean, we have a lot of these different kinds of abatement hearings. It just seems, and yes, there's a lot of these on this piece of paper, over 200, but it just seems percentage-wise like there's a lot more complainants than we normally see in these kind of hearings. So I totally appreciate that the city is being very aggressive about fixing our sidewalks. I understand that there are issues relative to cost to homeowners, but I get particularly disturbed when I hear stories like the one gentleman who said that he had been trying to prove repeatedly that he had actually accomplished the repairs relative to a sewer vent that the city had wanted him to accomplish. I assume that that's one of the ones that have been taken off the list. But if we've got approximately 200 of these, with this number coming off, and I'm saying this with all respect to DPW that does a great job over many different programs, that it would be great if some of these things could be ameliorated prior to a hearing like this so we really can separate the wheat from the chaff and not so many fall off. So that's just my comment.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. And I just had some follow-up questions. Specifically, the concern I had were the individuals who said they had come here before, they had talked to someone and thought the issue was resolved, and the issue wasn't resolved. Can you explain what happened in those particular incidents?
Unfortunately, I'm thinking that it's a miscommunication issue, but we have put in mitigation measures. So we have been keeping a log of communications with the constituents and Public Works. So I'm almost 100% sure that this won't, 99% sure that this won't happen next year.
And the reason why I bring that up is because since I've been on the board with these particular cases, I don't recall someone saying that they had come here before and the issue was not resolved and they're back again. And so that was definitely a surprise to me. And I think ultimately, my biggest concern is the communication and making sure that there is clear communication, with these property owners, and there is also, I guess, a little bit better outreach, especially for some of our low-income property owners, especially our senior population. I know that oftentimes with more elderly people, they don't really do their paperwork or manage their stuff, and a lot of this could be really confusing and stressful. And so I just really would like the department to do a better job at how they communicate when they are sending notices. I don't know if it means home visits or somehow connecting, with those particular individuals, so it doesn't come to a point where they feel the need to send a family member or show up to one of these hearings. I'd like to see these issues just resolved with a little bit more of compassion for those particular individuals. And is there anything else that you want to add, or anything else? Anyone has any other questions regarding this particular issue? Supervisor Yee?
I'm just wondering why we are having hearings during the day when people have to take off work. It really makes, especially if they're coming back twice, but even when you're coming once, it's a real big burden. I think it's more difficult for, in my mind, people. It's difficult for anybody to take off work to come here. But if you're working in a very low-income job where you get fired just because you want to come over here to make their case, it's a real burden. And so it almost feels like those that are low income, or those that have jobs where they can't get off work, they can't even come here to protest. I'm just wondering if there's any possibility of shifting that, when you have the hearing, so that it could be done in the evenings or some other format.
Supervisor Yee, you make a really good point. I think what we should consider looking at is the possibility of we can check with the city attorney to do a couple of things. Number one, look at whether or not we can hold some of these hearings in committee, which I'm not sure we can. And number two, we could potentially look at listing it for 5 o'clock rather than 3 o'clock, so that it's later in our agenda. I think your point is well taken, because to sit here and wait around and have to listen to all of what we're doing on the board when you're, taking off from work to come and testify and address your issue, it's really unfortunate, and I know we can do better than this. So thank you, Supervisor Yee, and I'll work with the city attorney on what could be changed in order to make this a better process. All right, with that, this hearing has been heard and is now filed and closed. And would anyone like to make a proposal to amend the current resolution and adopt it? Okay, no one would like to amend? Supervisor Tang?
I'll just amend based on what our public works staff had stated into the record, and then vote on that as amended. Okay, and is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor, I saw Peskin's hand first. Sorry, Supervisor Cohen. All right, with that, on the item as amended, can you please call the roll, Madam Clerk?
On item 30, Supervisor Campos.
No.
Campos, no. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 10 ayes and 1 no, with Supervisor Campos in the dissent.
The resolution is adopted. All right. I think we've gotten through most of our agenda. Items 35 through 42, please. The adoption without reference to committee items.
Items 35 through 42 are being considered for immediate adoption without committee reference. A single roll call vote may enact these items. A member may object, sever an item, and have it considered separately.
Supervisor Peskin?
Items 35 and 39, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Supervisor Farrell?
37, please.
All right. On the remaining items, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner. Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Those items are approved unanimously. Item 35.
Item number 35 is a resolution urging state legislatures to amend or oppose California State Assembly Bill 650, Public Utilities Commission, regulation of taxicabs, and recognition of negative impacts on local transportation services and consumer safety protection.
Supervisor Peskin?
Thank you, Madam President. The amendments to AB 650 in the California State Legislature have been relatively extensive. And to that end, I would like to delete the second whereas on page 2 and would like to make a motion to do so. For those of you who have been keeping up with what's going on in Sacramento, there are now proposals to transfer regulatory authority from the CPUC to the State Department of Transportation. Nonetheless, I think that this is something that we should still take a position on. And so first I would like to make a motion to delete the second whereas in AB 650, on page 2, that reads, whereas AB 650 also amends the California Vehicle Code, that provision. And then I would like to ask for a waiver to send it to committee and an affirmative vote on the item as amended.
Okay, Supervisor Peskin has made a motion to amend. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Tang. Colleagues, can we take the amendment without objection? Without objection, the amendment passes. And you want to send this item to committee?
No, I would like to waive sending it from committee and then pass the item.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but...
If we could have a unanimous vote, it means nothing.
Okay. So, colleagues, can we take this item... No? Yay? Okay, roll call vote.
On item 35, as amended, Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen. No. Cohen, no. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner.
No.
Weiner, no. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Aye. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 9 ayes and 2 noes.
Okay, this resolution is adopted. Item 37.
Item number 37 is a resolution urging the San Francisco Employees Retirement System and Retirement Board to divest from firearm and ammunition manufacturers.
Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, colleagues. And Madam President, I'll save my remarks that I mentioned last week at roll call. Hope to have your support on this item. I know Supervisor Avalos wants to have a different hearing on a broader topic, but look forward to engaging with our retirement board on these matters.
All right, Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. I'd like to duplicate the file, send the duplicated file to committee with my name as a sponsor. And I'm ready to vote today on the underlying file.
Okay, seeing no other names on the roster, the file has been duplicated. We'll go to committee. All right. Colleagues, can we take roll call vote on this particular resolution, Madam Clerk?
On the original file 37, Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Weiner. Weiner, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The resolution is adopted unanimously. Item 39, please.
Item number 39 is a resolution urging the San Francisco Legislative Delegation to oppose State Assembly Bill 2788 regarding wireless telecommunication facilities due to its preemption of local land use controls, elimination of local agency review, and lack of public access to the wireless permitting process.
Supervisor Peskin.
Colleagues, as it seems like all we deal with is state bills on local preemption these days, whether it is in the realm of housing, whether it's in the realm of transportation, or in this particular case in the realm of the wireless industry. But we have some good news on this insofar as the Assembly bill has been withdrawn and the FCC chair, Tom Wheeler, have changed course. But inasmuch that we have likely not seen the end of this with respect to fast-tracking and preempting, I would like to offer some amendments that reflect the city's concerns over any future legislation that would seek to replicate provisions, exceptions, and the intent of AB 2788. And to that end, I have circulated some modest amendments, namely to strike the last whereas clause and replace it with a whereas clause that would read, whereas after these and other concerns were presented to Assemblymember Gatto by a diversity of constituencies, he has withdrawn Assembly Bill 2788 for the near term, and then slightly change the first resolve and the first further resolved to insert that the board to insert and future legislation that would replicate its current provision, so that we go on record in opposition to legislation of this sort. So I will make a motion to adopt those amendments.
Okay, Supervisor Peskin has made a motion to adopt the amendments, seconded by Supervisor Avalos. Can we take the amendments without objection? Without objection, the amendments pass. And I see no names on the roster. On the item as amended, colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? All right, this resolution as amended is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, will you please read the in memoriams?
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following individuals. On behalf of the entire board, for the late John L. Taylor, on behalf of Supervisor Kim, for the late Catherine Slatery, and for the late Corporal Magdalena Leonis. On behalf of Supervisor Marr, for the late Heather Miller, and on behalf of Supervisor Avalos, for the late Joseph G. Lambert.
All right. This brings us to the end of our agenda. Madam Clerk, is there any other business before us today?
No, that concludes our business for today.
Great. We are adjourned. Have a happy 4th of July.